Hey guys, I'm Nathan. I've just finished my first day at Eucbowl. I finished 1-1-1, and I'm the idiot that didn't put their team up for the painting competition. But anyway, you're listening to Down Under World Denizens, and this is episode 28.
So today's episode is all about appropriate Blood Bowl etiquette. And I know the game is full of fouling and players with foul appearance and disturbing presence and blood on the pitch and death and, pretty much anything goes. The referee's half blind, half deaf. But actually, at the end of the day, what we're doing is actually playing a hobby. We're actually doing it because we choose to. It's a board game that we want to be involved in, and it involves other people and socializing with other people. So we don't want a negative experience actually outside of the game. So I guess my introductory question is around this topic, which is what is something unusual or unique that you've experienced an opposing coach doing or did that you would really prefer that they didn't do? So, for example, it might be maybe halfway through a game, they pull out a packet of Cheetos and start munching on them and then put their cheesy fingers all over your models. Somebody want to start and let me know what's something somebody's done that's just not quite been kosher.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm not really sure that I've had anyone do something that I would prefer they wouldn't do. I have had once in my Blood Bowl career that one of the coaches or my opposing coach said, "Oh, can we just share your dice?" And it kind of took me back. It took me aback. And I know it's something that people do in other parts of the world, and it was usually an accepted thing. I know now with having COVID came through and wiped out our ranks a number of years ago that it's probably not something to do anymore. But it did take me back because I'm as OCD as the next person. It's like, no, these are my dice. I want to roll my dice. You roll your dice. But that's probably the only thing the only other quirky thing I've had is that person that counts out the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they put their finger down, on the square that they're going to, and then they'll do something else, and then they'll count out the exact same 7, and then they'll look at something else, and then they'll count out the exact same 7, and it just kind of it's weird. It's like it was already 7 last time you counted. You don't need to count again. So that's about the only quirky things I've had. Yeah. What about you, Wilts?
Nothing specific comes to mind, but it is always a bit of a laugh when you finally break armor up deep into the second half. You get a casualty for the first time in the game while you're missing 4 players yourself. Someone gets on the next turn, they get an armor break and they only get a stun, and they complain that they didn't even up the casualty score in the second half, even though they're 3 ahead already.
Yeah, I've had that quite a bit. Babs, have you got some quirkiness come your way?
Yeah, look, it's not so much a shade on anybody in particular, but one of the things, in my old age, I tend to get addled a little bit more easily. And I don't know about whether it's just me and maybe I'm just getting used to the really cool things like, the Bravo Brawl Shop skill bands and, tabletop goodies system of skill tabs, but I just find loom bands and just the color diversity just does my head in. Most notably, when I was representing Queensland in the Ausbowl State Championships, it got to the last turn of the game, and I decided to set. I was playing vampires, and I decided to set up for 1 turn touchdown against Wood Elves. And I started to set up, and then I suddenly thought, "Oh, hang on!" And I'll switch sides, and I switched sides over to a different war dancer. And what I'd completely forgotten was that the player I was planning to chain push had sidestep because they had a pink loom band on. And the opposing coach didn't think to mention that to me. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of those kind of gotchas. Well, you should have remembered because I explained it at the beginning of the game. And, I've got this purple and white loom band, and that means that player's got sidestep or whatever it is. And I don't know, it was a bit of a cheap shot. I've completely forgotten that player had sidestep. And I tend to, if somebody's going to, take a blitz action on a player with a skill, I'll normally remind them and say, oh, by the way, that player's got stand firm, or don't forget this player's got before they roll the dice, if they give me the chance to. And maybe I'm just too nice, but I just think Blood Bowl's bigger than gotchas.
Yeah, for sure. The more information everyone has at every given moment, the better off everyone will be.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just, when you've got so many good options out there, like Bravo's Brawl Shops and Charlie Victor's skill bands, I'm just a bit over the loom bands, to be honest. As much as I'm going to bring them as a tournament organizer as a last resort, I think they really are a last resort these days.
Yeah, well, I just played a league game yesterday, and I do have the Bravo's Brawl Shop skill bands. I actually went and bought a second set to get the rest of the skills and so on that I needed. But unfortunately, some of my players have some extra skills that you don't normally see in a skill band combo. So I had to put the biggest, most prominent skill on there, and then put, like I had one that has pro and fend. So like no one's going to make up a skill band for pro and fend because it's not a regular one. So, I had to put one skill band on and then put a loom band over the top just to sort of let people know about it. But it's not the best thing to do.
Yeah, but
I suppose
at least that's
that,
clear. Like you can read the one skill that they do have and go, oh yeah, that's right, that's the player with those two because they've got a loom band as well as the yeah.
yeah.
No,
And
I like that.
I had two of my players had frenzy and block, and I don't have block frenzy loom bands or block frenzy base bands. So I put frenzy on them because that's the more prominent one. And I told my opponent, well, both of my players that have frenzy also have block. So it's a red band. You can't miss it. So knowing that I was blocking or blitzing with that frenzy piece, they already knew that I had block. So it wasn't a problem. But yeah, I think getting back to what you were saying, like, oh, pink means this, and there's so many different colors of loom bands, and it's hard to keep up, and you've got to have like this little ready reckoner beside you to remember what they are, and those sorts of things. Sometimes they can create a little bit of a feel bad moment that you go to block or blitz the wrong player, and it catches you out, which is kind of, I suppose, what this episode's all about, discussing etiquette in Blood Bowl. And when we start with etiquette in Blood Bowl, it should be before the event. Things like printing out your roster, printing a spare one for your opponent. Make sure that your player positions are really clear. I've had problems in the past playing against some of those Qtimal teams where some of them just look exactly the same, and whilst you might know yourself that the walrus is a blitzer and the seal is a this, it's for somebody else playing against your team. It sometimes can be hard. So if you can find some way to distinguish between them, that's always a good thing. Like I said, before the event starts, before the game actually gets underway, letting your opponent know what they are. And I'd even hazard a guess to say, if you are in doubt, if you're thinking that your team's going to be really hard to distinguish, either grab a new team or borrow somebody else's or something like that, because you don't want that vagueness in your opponent to skew the match, I suppose. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah, I think look, I love teams like the Terra Australis team or the Qtimal team or even Yaffe's Ducks. Like I think they're fun. Like I don't have a problem with it. I mean Blood Bowl doesn't take itself seriously. So you want to turn up with Hello Kitty Blood Bowl team, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Just make sure all the positionals are crystal clear. And if there is some level of ambiguity, paint the base ring base, like paint the base, so that blitzers are red and blockers are green and throwers are white. The NAF actually produce a standardized base ring color scheme for miniatures, make sure it follows that standard. And then, as we've said, making sure skills are really clearly indicated. Using something like Bravo's Brawl Shop, just coming back to them for a second, if you want to get a set of those Bravo's Brawl Shop base rings, then jump onto thebrawlshop.com.au and make sure in the code there's a what is it, a discount code? What do they call it? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, at
Promotional.
checkout, there's a discount code.
Yeah, and Down Underworld Denizens have got one especially for you from the Brawl Shop called Brawl Pod 10. So that's BRAWLPOD number 1 number 0. And that will get you 10% off. So why
And
not?
worth noting that they are in all caps, so use capital letters for that Brawl Pod 10.
Yep. Yeah, and make sure you grab something because so much better than loom bands. And besides, just aesthetically even, what the hell are these players running around a Blood Bowl pitch with hula hoops around their waists? Like, what's going on?
I've heard them
It's
call
called
hula hoops
fashion.
before, yes.
It's called fashion. You wouldn't understand.
No, I really wouldn't.
But there's also the old school argument of, well, the players have numbers on them. You've got a team sheet. You can read the numbers off the bases. What's wrong with that?
Oh, no, I see. I think that's
It's a
too
little bit
hard.
extreme, perhaps, but
If you can't look at the model and know straight away what it is, I think you need to work harder.
Yeah, I've played many years ago. I think it was an undead team, and I forget what they might have even been a chaos team or something like that. And anyway, the guys going, oh, yeah, all the guys with one horn on their helmet, they are skeletons, and the ones with two horns are blitzers. And it's like in the heat of the battle, like it's just too hard. Like they look the exact same models, just one of them's got a horn on one side, and one of them's got two horns, and it's like that sort of thing. It's not clear. It may be clear to you, it may be clear to you and your league mates, but when you go into a tournament, make sure they are clear. Probably the best one I could tell you about was back in my Q&K days, Queensland Northern Knights. We went down to Eucbowl one year, and Chad, a week before Eucbowl, came up with this brilliant idea to come up with this fans team. So he reached out to everyone and grabbed some miniatures here and there, and he had an elf and a dwarf and a vampire. There was so many different types of miniatures, and he played them as humans. So what he did was just yellow base rings for the catchers, white base rings for the throwers, red base rings for the blitzers, and it was quite clear. So you didn't have to actually look at the model. It was like, oh, is that orc a blitzer or is that orc a thrower? The base ring showed it all, and he actually won best painted that year at Eucbowl too. So and got into, I think, what was the e-published thing we used to have back in the day? Was it Blitz magazine?
Yep, sure was.
that's before my time in the hobby.
Yeah, one of the guys in Victoria or South Australia produced it. Yeah, I remember.
Alrighty. So what's next in our etiquette? We have talked to our opponent before the match. We've shown them our skills. We've shown them our roster.
We should go through what to talk about for a second.
True.
But just before we do, I just wanted to say, hey, later on in this episode, I have a bit of a beef with Games Workshop with Warhammer, and the gauntlet is well and truly thrown down there, saying you've done us wrong, you've wronged us. But I want to do the opposite. I actually want to give them a shout out. I want to give them a high five here. I love the fact that in the Blood Bowl 25 rulebook on page 30 and 31, they actually cover a lot of the basic, this is what we expect of you when you're playing a game of Blood Bowl against an opponent. Just the really simple things. Standard code of conduct. Always be polite and respectful to your opponent. Always tell the truth and never cheat, unless, of course, it's on the pitch and it's part of the rules, right? But in terms of don't cheat in terms of doing something,
Budging dice rolls or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just think it's great. I think it's one of the quite unsung heroes of this edition is that the code of conduct is crystal clear. It's there in the rule book. Tournament organisers can always point somebody to it and say, well, there it is. You didn't follow this. Now you're getting a warning, or now you're out. I think that's great. That's a win. And sadly, there've been opportunities, there've been situations where that's had to be a step. Tournament organisers have had to have those kinds of conversations. So, as Blood Bowl gets more and more popular, as Blood Bowl, now it's considered a mainstream game in both Australia and New Zealand, and you can get, sponsorship from Warhammer to run Blood Bowl tournaments. As that happens, more and more people are joining the game, joining the hobby, playing games, and some of these people need to be shown very clearly what's appropriate and what's not. So let's go through some of the things that aren't covered in those pages of the rule book. That's the purpose of this episode. And I think one of the most important rules is actually making sure your opponent understands exactly how you're playing. So the first one I like is talking about the default state of players. So me personally, I like making sure that once I've activated any player, I face them backwards. And then before the beginning of my next turn, I turn all my players back to face forwards again. Other coaches that I play alternate and make sure they all face backwards at the beginning of their second turn and then face them forwards as they activate. And they just need to remember to make them all face the correct direction each time. The reason I don't is that's just a bit too confusing for me, and I probably will get confuddled. But I think other conversations worth having are things to do with dice. Wilts, is there something you explain with dice with your opponent before you get going?
So obviously everyone has their own preferences as far as what qualifies as a cut or cocked dice. Even some people going to extremes of if there's a piece of paper flat on the table and the dice is halfway across the corner, it counts as cocked and it gets re-rolled. So if it's not flat on a single surface, that can be the extreme some people go to. If I'm using a dice cup, I generally say anything that falls out of the dice cup before the cup is flat on the slam pad, goes back in and gets re-rolled. That's pretty straightforward for me. If two dice get stacked up on top of each other coming out of the dice cup, some people will re-roll the one that's not flat. Some people will not. I tend to lean towards as long as it's flat and stable, I'll just pick it up and move it across, and we'll see what's underneath it. But obviously everyone has their own preferences there. And as long as everyone knows what's expected before the dice start flying for real, then I don't see any big issues either way.
Yeah, I think there's a big one there about non-standard dice. So back in the day, in fact, Garden Gnome, Nomi, who I do love very dearly, despite the fact I gave him a gentle sledge last episode. He has a set of eggs and bacon block dice. They are very difficult to work it out. So literally, the skulls are like little piggies, and the pushes are rashers of bacon, and the pows are eggs. So that takes a bit of time to get your head around. And I just think if you're using block dice like that, you've got to check with your opponent first before you just presume they're okay. So if you've got non-standard block dice, yeah, check with your opponents first, and make sure they're okay. And if not, have some in reserve to use that are standard, or check with your tournament organizer that they're non-standard dice. And obviously the standard no is make sure that if you've got dice with a symbol on them to D6, make sure that symbol is on the 6, not on the 1, because that will do people's head-ins if it is.
The one that does my head in all the time is all these people with their dice from the big V, which just has a big V as the symbol. And my brain always goes, but V means 5. But it's on the 6 face. What's going on?
In most cases, it doesn't make a difference, does it?
Well, it depends. If they're dodging into 4 tackle zones to pick up the ball, a 5 won't do it.
What do you do when you have my sevens dice, but Wilts with my little 7-toed footprint on there? I've counted that as 7 and multiple times. It's like, yeah, I got 10. It's like, no, you only got 9. No, 7 plus 2 is, oh yeah, whoops, sorry. No, I just getting back onto the block dice. I know Stewie, who went to Eucbowl last year, was kind enough to get some sets of dice and so on, and he got me a set of block dice from over there, and I will not use them because like the push is like an axe sort of thing, and there's some other symbol, and they're just not clear. So I've got them. I've got them on my bench in here,
rack.
on my display rack. but I have had. I'll say his name, but I'm not doing a call out here. I played Kalimon last year at Eucbowl, and he just has this two massive sacks of dice, and one of them's got D6 and one of them's got block dice, and he reaches in, and although it does do my head in that anybody can just pick out two different dice and roll them, that's always doing my head in. But yeah, there's quite a number of his dice that I'm lucky enough. I've been in the Blood Bowl scene long enough to have seen pretty much all of the Australian dice that have been around. I think it was Bushranger Bowl. I think it was way back in the day that had a set of block dice, and they had like the Southern Cross as this and a blunderbuss as that. So luckily, I've seen them and I know what they are. But I could imagine someone who had not seen them, and then he just picks it up and goes, "Oh yeah, that was a POW." Some people might question that and go, "Was it really?" And not saying anything against Kalimon there. He genuinely rolled them and played them how they were. But there could be people that might not have seen these particular dice before.
Yeah.
So just like you said, just discuss it with your opponent, and you could even pick it up and go, "Yeah, no, that's a power because look, you can see here's the skull," or something like that.
Do it before the first roll of the dice. Actually show them the die and say, "Hey, this is what I'm planning to use. This is what this means. This is what this means." It takes.
Have
you
seen
seconds.
Have you seen the size of the bag Kalimon's got? That will
No,
take
I'm not
3
talking
hours. The dude has a million dice. I
Maybe,
think Rabbit's got about
but
the
actually,
same too.
one set of dice that I used to like rolling a lot, and I don't use anymore is a Spanish set of block dice. And literally the only thing that's unusual is that there are swirls for pals, like it's a little spirally swirl. But the number of coaches that would go, whoa, 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 what is that? And for me, I was like, this is clear as day. But for them, it was really confusing. So don't just presume. And so, I don't even take it to tournaments now, just because even though I think it's really obvious, it just isn't. So I think if in doubt, don't, or check with your tournament organizer, or explain it to your opponent before you get going.
Yeah, problem solved. Just let them know what they are. All good.
Yeah.
Is this where I should mention that, Babs, you really need to get your NAF dice reprinted with the logo on their blank faces?
Oh, thank you, Wilt. Thank you, Wilt. Babs, for those people that does not know, has NAF dice that the NAF logo has completely rubbed off and it's just a blank. I've tried calling him out and saying, "Well, that's a 0." He won't he won't listen to me. But hopefully, Babs, when you do play against your opponents, you do let them know that these ones with nothing on the top, that's actually a 6 that's rubbed off.
Yes, that's right. Well, look, if somebody's got a transfer or some way of reprinting those NAF logos, I'm interested. Color me interested. If there's a listener out there that reckons they can re-put those NAF logos on there, so that's why I love the
Have you had a chat to Tats about that?
Well, no, I haven't yet, but
Tats
I
can
might.
do all sorts
Pretty
of
sure our
things.
main sponsor does that for a living now.
Well, does he do laser, or printing? Anyway, but the point is that the new NAF gift actually has the NAF logo engraved. So that's much better because it won't.
Sexy looking dice. I got mine on Saturday.
And interestingly, I never had a problem with my NAF logos rubbing off until I moved to Queensland. I think it's a weather thing as much as anything else.
Yeah, we've rubbed off on you. While we're on dice, there are some not so much quirks, but I know I do this every time I play Warner with those dang Nurgle and their foul appearance. So knowing that I'm going up against a foul appearance person, I will actually say to Warner, I'm blocking this guy here. The foul appearance dice is in here, so I'll have my 2 block dice. And I'll have a D6 in there. So I roll them. If it's a 1, then the block didn't happen. If it's not a 1, then I proceed. So there are some times when people do those sorts of things with their dice. But once again,
can work for ogres.
Like I communicate that with,
ogres with bonehead and vampires with bloodlust. There's 2 others that works for.
If you're being a purely competitive sense, though, in a lot of cases, that's probably not the best method because you've seen as you rolled the double power, but you rolled a 1 for your foul appearance.
But it just doesn't count. So if you roll a 1, those dice do not mean anything because then
But if
you
you
re-roll
re-roll the
the
fail
entire
appearance, then you have
lot.
to roll new dice.
Yes, correct. So otherwise, it's, as you say, statistically that would not work any other way. But yes, if you fail the die that is your bonehead or your foul appearance or your your bloodlust, then yes, the rest of the dice are irrelevant. It does speed up the game to do it that way if your opponent is
Potentially.
comfortable with it. Yep, I like it. I'm
Um,
fine with it.
one I do every now and then is if it's the only dodge a player's going to make for the whole turn and they've got the dodge skill, then I can roll two dice and then off they go. But that's as long as you presuming they're not going to try and make a dodge for the rest of the turn.
Yeah, and again, just double
Um,
check that your opponent's okay with it before you do it. I don't have a problem, but some people might.
or if you've got the pass skill and you're throwing a pass, you're obviously only going to do one of those in the turn. So yeah,
Yeah, it just speeds up the game just that little bit, and it's one of the reasons why playing Blood Bowl 3 or Fumble, you know, is so much faster than playing in tournaments. Is you're not rolling each die separately; they're all happening simultaneously. So I like the fact that Millsy does it. I'm up for it, and I like it. Millsy, do it. Keep doing it.
I don't want to go up against Nurgle again, so I don't want to keep doing it. Nurgle and my bogey team at the moment, I'm having real problems coming to grips with them, and some part of me just keeps going, oh, take it to him, you can take him down, you can take him down. It's like, you're an idiot, just stand off and move around, you've got speed. But I don't. Yeah, I fall for the trap every time.
And there are other things to do with rolling that we should touch on briefly too. So, dice trays. I personally much prefer a dice tray. People rolling into a dice tray than rolling on the board. But dice trays obviously have a lip to stop the dice from coming off the dice tray. And sometimes those lips can then get in the way of your opponent actually reading what's being rolled. So you do need to be cautious about that. And if you are going to roll dice on the board, again, you want to be really careful not to smash into models. I've seen that happen a few times. The last thing you want is your miniatures getting chipped or even broken from flying dice. Yeah, Millsy, you had an experience with somebody rolling dice into a pile of dice. Do you want to fill our listeners in
Yes,
on that
well, it
one?
was actually um, it was the same player actually. He was rolling dice straight forward onto the pitch, and many of the time it was knocking players over and so on, or they'd land up on a base, and I'd say, that's cocked and so on. So they did start rolling them instead of rolling forward into the mat. They started rolling them sideways, but then they were hitting their other dice pile, and I to this day think. I'm pretty sure he picked up the wrong dice and said, no, this is what it was when it wasn't. I can't be 100% sure on that, so I will not name the person's name. But it, even if it was or wasn't, it does create that bit of illusion of was it? You don't know. So please don't please don't roll your dice into miniatures, and please don't roll your dice into other into another dice pile.
So yeah, and I think you also want to make sure you're rolling properly. Actually rolling dice is actually learning how to fake roll dice is actually a skill you can learn. So magicians can learn how to, trick roll dice. So I think you want to be really, careful that you're rolling them really well. I've also seen people just literally place a die into a dice cup and then turn the dice cup straight upside down. No rolling around in the dice cup first. So, you want to be careful you're rolling properly just to get that random result. So again, you don't want to leave any kind of perception of you doing the wrong thing. So just do it properly. In the grand scheme of things, it should be fine. It's not going to take too long to do properly. Um, what about player activations? Obviously the official rules almost sledge us old timers for wanting to lie our miniatures down, but there are some really good ways of indicating miniatures being prone or stunned that aren't lying your model down. We touched on Bravo's Brawl Shop and Charlie Victor's status bands that you place on the model. There are also things like tabletop goodies have got like a status indicator that goes under the miniature. It's a
Oh, with
magnetized
a flag
system
hanging
that,
off the
yeah,
side, yeah.
yeah, it has a flag that pops up that says they're distracted. What do you guys do to indicate, your model's distracted? Do you use the GW markers? What do you do?
Well, years ago, you know, the only distracted thing you had was, when you're ogre boneheaded. And the usual thing that I used to do was turn the bottle sideways. It's either facing forwards, I haven't gone yet, facing backwards, he's had their move, and I would turn them sideways. But yeah, with the these new skill bands and so on, I will not ever use these ridiculous status markers that came in the box set. They get lost. You can't see them. The skill markers are great. Um, Put them on there. You know exactly what's happening. The other thing I do like is, I think Stratagem Dan had it, and he played it at the Bundy Brawl that had the skill sort of flag thing that you said. And he actually, before the match, when I played him, and I know he's done it this with you as well, Babs, he just said, you know, if you're getting this player down, tell me which square they're going into. I will put prone or stunned on them after you roll the dice, because obviously he didn't want to lay his models down because they were pretty good looking models. So, as long as there's something clear that you don't have to search around the base for to see it, and you can clearly see it, I'm all for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. What other things? I think one of the things as well as touching base briefly is again, right at the beginning of the game here. What about chess clocks? Here in Australia, I think there's been a little bit of some coaches feeling a bit funny about having to use a chess clock. They feel a bit awkward about it. Like, that's just going to put extra pressure on me. You're just trying to psych me out, kind of idea. There is a bit of a stigma with chess clocks. I personally think we need to move on, just get on with it and use one and practice until you're comfortable with one. What do other people think about chess clocks? Should we have them? Shouldn't we have them? What are people's opinion? Is it bad sportsmanship to insist on one?
I don't think we have enough time in this episode for me to tell you my opinion, but I will give you a condensed one. I'll let you go first, Wilt. So,
I don't necessarily believe that it's bad sportsmanship to ask for a chess clock, because obviously there are some players in the wider community, Babs, that are notoriously slow players. So if you're concerned yourself that you might take longer than you think you should in a match, and you're playing against another player that you're not sure about, or that you know might also be pushing to time, it's definitely a good thing to get people motivated to get their turns happening, get through the motions, make sure they're not wasting time or spending too much time trying to decide one specific thing at a time in a critical moment of the match. Um, I haven't personally played with a chess clock at a tournament yet, but it's not something I'd be necessarily afraid of. I do want to get some practice games in using the chess clock just to get more comfortable and familiar with them, as well. But I think as far as making sure your matches don't drag out, making sure you don't need to have the TO make an adjudication as to what the final result of the game is and let the game speak for itself, is definitely going to be the thing to aim for sure.
okay. Do you want my hot take?
Go for it, Millsy.
I, I'm not a fan of chess clocks. My sole reason I don't like them is it now it's competitive, this game. And yes, I'm at a tournament, and yes, I'm trying to win. I'll try and win every game I ever play. But it brings out, I don't know whether I just don't like power gamers or meta chasers, those sorts of things. These toxic elite that we'll have this clock and blah 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 blah. I like to sit down and have a fun game with my opponent. Now I know I'm quick enough; I can finish in the time. And if you're someone that's coming to a tournament and you've got this chess clock because you want to win and so on, you've been playing just as long as I have. We should be able to finish our game in the time allocated. So I don't like it from that point of view. Now, I have been to tournaments where chess clocks were mandatory and I had no problem with it. I've been to tournaments where chess clocks could be used. The I've been to a tournament where a chess clock has been put onto my match halfway through the game. That's, and I know we had to do that because our game was behind schedule. I don't believe that I was the slower player in that particular case. So, but the TO came over and said, and rightly so, it was in their rules pack before that if people were behind at this time, then a chess clock would be put onto your game. So I have no problem with them doing that. I could see how chess clocks could be manipulated. So, like, I could deliberately take all the time I want, when it's, you kick to me, I've got this 8-turn drive, and I take an hour and a half to do my 8-turn drive. And then your opponent puts their hand up and says, "Hey, we're behind time." TO comes over and goes, "Okay, you've both got this amount of time left." Basically, in that particular sense, if you've stalled out the time wise in the first time, you're giving your opponent, basically half as much time to have their drive back at you, which I don't really like. So, yeah, chess clocks to me, it brings out just a competitive nature that I don't like. I like to have every game that is fun. I like both of us to go for it as hard as we can to win, but you know, I just think we're there to have, I'm signing a social contract with my opponent, and we should both honour that. If we go back to the code of conduct, you're playing in the most fair manner. You're there on good terms to play the game fairly. If you're a person that doesn't play fairly, then I generally speaking don't want to play against you again. Having said all of that, the Brisbane, or the North Brisbane guys, when they had their doubles tournament, that's what it was at the start of the year. They had chess clocks, but there was a little cool gimmick in that if because you and your partner were allowed to talk to each other, so you had to do that on your time. So if your partner leaned over and said, "What do you think I should do in this play?" you actually had to let your game clock run continuously whilst you leaned over and gave them advice and so on. So that was a cool little quirk to it that, if you want to help out your partner that's playing beside you, then it's going to impact in your own game. So in that sense, chess clocks were okay. But, if my opponent ever says, "Do you want to?" I'll always say, "No, I don't want to." But if they say, "I'd like to," yep, go ahead. The other thing, like I said, it's going to take a while for this one. The other one is if you sit down with your opponent and they say, "Okay, we're going to play with a chess clock," and even if you agree, say, "Yep, okay, no worries." Has that chess clock been set by the TO? So if the chess clock time does run out, but there's still game time left, do we go by the chess clock time or do we go by the game time? And as a TO, if I haven't enforced chess clocks, then as a TO, we're going by the time that I set to finish this round, not what your chess clock that you've both agreed on comes up with.
Okay. So just a small comment then is if you've had an encounter with someone who's deliberately slow played the clock because they've received the first half and you're running out of time to run your second half drive back the other way, wouldn't that be an encouragement to run the chess clocks to guarantee that that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I think the issue is that I actually agree completely with Millsy. Putting a chess clock on part way through a game is problematic, as you explained really well. I think you either have them from the outset or you don't have them at all. And I think otherwise, exactly what you said, Millsy, is spot on. That you've got this very unfair application of time divided between two coaches that haven't been using their time evenly by almost definition as to the fact that you're running slow. Somebody's chewing that clock. It's very unlikely to be both coaches at once using their time unfairly. So somebody's being slower than average. So to divide the time evenly is problematic, I think. So I really don't like the idea that a tournament organizer comes over partway through a game and says, "Oh, you're going on a chess clock." I think it's got to be from the beginning or not at all. And look, I am a slow player, as Wilts has already joked, and so that's why I tend to suggest a chess clock at the beginning. But I also really like what Millsy said, that run off the game clock. The whole reason I like running a chess clock is not that when I get to zero on the chess clock, will I get limited options. No, no, no. What I prefer is that if my game clock runs out, I know I need to play fast because otherwise we're going to run out of time before the game clock, the actual tournament round finishes. So it's really there as a guide more than actually there's a penalty if you get to zero on your own separate clock. So anyway, that's my preference. But yeah, I'm not, yeah, I think there's still a lot of stigma with chess clocks. And so I think it is a sensitive topic, as demonstrated by Millsy.
The other encouragement I would probably add to that is for tournament organizers that either encourage or mandate at certain points, it's definitely good to have whatever regulations they're going to run with in the players pack so that they've got something they can point people to rather than being accused of making something up halfway through an event to target one specific player. The more upfront and the more open they can be about it, the better it's going to be for everybody.
What about let's talk a little bit about some things about chatting in game. First of all, what about um giving advice in game? Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Would that be okay? Would it not be okay? I think, you know, one of the things you want to be careful about is if you're giving advice to your opponent while you're playing them, first of all, you need to be in a position where you're comfortable to do that, particularly at a tournament. Secondly, be careful that's not patronizing. And I think, yeah, you want to be very careful not to come across that way.
I think it depends on the person and whether you've played them before or whether you've got an amicable relationship with them directly. But against players that I haven't necessarily played before and aren't necessarily the tournament um, elite crowd, I do like to often suggest to people, are you sure you want that one die? You don't want to get someone in there as for an assist? Or this guy's got this skill, are you sure you want to block him instead of someone else? Now, obviously, some people can t find a way to turn that into a mind game. I prefer not to think that I'm doing that. I don't do it to everyone, obviously. But it's more a case of just as a reminder of, hey, that'll be a one die block. If you do that, that'd be two die. Or are you sure that's what your best course of action for your one blitz for the turn? But yeah, obviously I try not to be patronizing, try not to be disparaging, but just as a hey, that's only going to be one die, or hey, that's going to be two die uphill, just making sure that's what you want, sort of way.
Yeah, I do very similar myself, Wilt, and like you said, it depends on your opponent. If I'm playing Joe and Knight and on top table round five, and he wants to do a one die block without bringing someone else in, I'm certainly not going to say anything because it's for the tournament win. But you know, generally speaking, if someone's going, oh, that's one die, oh, I don't know whether I should do a one die. I quite often say, well, if you brought another person in, you would get two die. Or if you block this person first, then you'll get a two die after it, or you might get it. I've quite often done it. Just to, I suppose it's giving advice, but I never do it in a condescending way or anything like that. And it is like I said, my number one goal of playing Blood Bowl, whether it is on the top table, last round or not, is I am there to have fun. And if my opponent, you know, loses because they had a bad block or something, part of me says, I could have helped them out there. I always try and do that if I can. It's not always perfect. And at other times when I give advice, I always say, well, these are your two options. I would do this, but that's in my play style. Your play style might differ because you might want to have a second play after that. So I always, preface it with, well, with my play style, I may be doing this. You might have a different way of playing. Yeah, or the other one is when someone goes, oh, I've got two one die blocks to do. Should I hit this guy? Should I hit that guy? And I'll quite often say, well, my person here doesn't have block, whereas the other one here does. So if you're going to do them, you're better off to do the one that hit my guy without block, as opposed to hit the other one. But it's one of those things, and I suppose it depends on your opponent from game to game.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've caught myself doing is accidentally giving advice to opposing coaches. And I've actually made a decision to myself that if I'm playing a really good player, somebody I know, is doing very well in the tournament, I'm going to try not to do that. But the classic is they start to move a player and I'll go, oh, is that a blitz action? Or I'll say, oh, is this a pass action? Normally because I've seen that that's what I would do in that circumstance. And several times I've had my opponent look at it and go, oh yeah, it is. I'm like, so I just gave them a clue. On the other hand, if I'm playing somebody who's relatively new to the game or relatively inexperienced, I'm totally fine with that. And, actually, last thing you want is, an inexperienced coach, go and making a dodge with the ball, planning to pass the ball, getting, doing their dodges or their rushes or whatever else, and then going, okay, I'm now going to pass. And you go, oh, no, you're not, because you didn't declare a pass action. That's a bit, I don't know, that's a bit of a gotcha. I don't like that. But, if it's an experienced player, well, fair game, I reckon.
Yeah, I've had quite a few players that go to do something, and you can tell just by looking at the board that this action is a blitz, and he's moves to here, dodges to there, gets up to there, and then they say, "Oh, this is a blitz action." Now, rules as written, I'm quite within my rights to say, "No, you didn't declare it as you moved," but anybody that's played the game looks at it and goes, "Yeah, that's the blitz." I knew it was going to be a blitz, so you sort of the fact that you didn't say it because you got caught up in the heat of the moment and you wanted to get that play in really quick. I don't want to have a gotcha moment like that, and someone to go, "Oh man, I lost the tournament because I forgot to say blitz and I couldn't do it, and that was my one shot." So, I don't like to have feel bad moments on either side of it. So, if it's clear that they were going to do it, I just say, "Yeah, look, no worries. Yeah, I knew you were going to pass because you moved your catcher already. So, go for it. Do your pass. It's all good."
But that's the other thing is if you've got a level of comfort with your opponent, particularly if it's someone you've played before, I tend to find it um, good for both of us that when I'm playing a turn, I'll talk through what my plan is. Like, oh, I'm going to blitz this guy, or I'm going to block here so that I've got a clean running line through here, or I'm going to make this block so I can run through and pass without an intercept attempt. So even though it might take just a minute or two to sort of talk yourself into it to steady it in your own mind, if your opponent hears what you're saying and as we said, oh well, you forgot to declare that as a pass. Well, I already said I was going to do this to make it a pass. Like there's got to be some leeway on both sides. So I'm perfectly happy when people have discussed things with me that oh I'm going to do this because then I want to do that. I'm happy for them to do it as they'd sort of discussed. Whereas in a truly nightmare rules sense of it, you could pull them up and say, "Oh, well, you didn't declare this as a pass." I'll usually try and remind people, uh, unless, as you say, it's table one and round five, you're playing for the sheep stations. Maybe that's not the time to do it.
Yeah, I know I've had a chat with Stewie before, where he had um, uh, probably a relatively newcomer to tournaments. I think the person had played, Blood Bowl a bit before, but um, and he was kind of doing um, similar things, or Stewie might have done a thing and forgot to declare the pass or whatever, and this guy's gone, "No, you didn't do it." Whereas Stewie had already let him off a couple of times doing, some blitzes or whatever else and so on. And yeah, so after Stewie had let him off, the guy said no to Stewie. So the next time it happened, Stewie went, "No, actually, no. If you're going to call it like it is, then I'm going to call it as well." And it did create a bit of a feel bad moment after that. But there does need to be some time during the game where you stop giving leniency, especially if someone hasn't given it to you. I suppose it's just human nature. If no one gives me leniency, then I'm certainly not going to give it back to you. But if we're both committed to be here to have fun, to play the game in the true spirit of the game, then leniency should be taken, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the reason for the pod, actually, to be honest. Like that's the whole reason for this episode is, we're trying to explain, actually you know what? If try and be lenient with your, try and give your opponent, a fun experience. If to be that pedantic and go, well, you didn't declare that it was a foul action, even though you surrounded the down player with other players, and it's blatantly obvious that's what you're doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think, yeah, some
It
people can
depends on the
just,
circumstances as much as anything.
yeah, yeah. I think at the end of the day, you want it to be a positive experience, and if that's what you're depending upon to beat your opponent, really, anyway, yeah. The other thing I need to be careful of myself, and it's worth reminding our listeners about, that I think is helpful, is the third dot point on page 31 of the rulebook says, never complain about your own bad luck or your opponent's good luck. There's something probably worse than that, and that's celebrating your opponent's bad luck or your own good luck in their face. Like, you want to be careful both directions. Actually, I was at the Bundy Brawl. I was playing a Skaven coach, and he actually, in a semi-joking manner, he said, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And I said, "Oh, well, what you want to do is you want to blitz with your rat ogre and roll double skulls." And I said it jokingly. And then he looked at the table and looked at the state of situations. And actually, that was a very sensible thing to do, was to blitz with the rat ogre first. So he did. And then he promptly rolled double skulls. And I went, yes, into the whole tournament. And then I suddenly realized what I'd done. Like, I was celebrating in his face that he'd failed it and it was a turnover. I was so thankful he actually successfully rolled for his loner roll, because I felt really bad that I just, kind of just celebrated his terrible dice roll. So you do want to be careful that you don't go doing that in their face.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for what you've just done there. Like I've
If it's a good friend, I'd have nothing against that, but certainly not some random you've never played before.
no, but I've certainly had it in a game where it's like I've done everything I can to hold my opponent out, and they've made this last ditch play and they've rolled sixes, fours, five, threes, twos, and it comes down to that last roll. And I suppose you can use your opponents, their body language with what they're doing, to see whether it could be done or not. So, I've quite often been there, and like they'll roll the dice cup and just hold it, and then you're both sitting there going, this determines whether I win or you win, or you draw or I, and you sit there, and you sit there, and then they do fail, and you go, yes, I got the win. Like, but the reason I've done that before, but you've got to read your opponent, and like I don't think I was bad in that situation, and my opponent certainly didn't think that either. The fact that they held the dice cup there, trying to create a little bit of that
Tension. Yeah, yeah,
attention,
yeah.
and just yeah. So yeah, read your opponent. When you're doing that, and going back to what you're saying, don't. Well, originally before having a go at your opponent's dice and so on, don't have a go at your own dice. Don't complain and moan. But can I put a caveat on that? Don't complain during the match. Certainly with your league mates and on your messenger groups afterwards, you can complain how bad your dice were and so on. But never in the game, because like we keep saying, you want that feel good moment with your partner, your opponent, and you just don't want anything that gets in there that can ruin the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, and look, and if your opponent does fail a critical roll, yeah, like obviously you're pleased because suddenly it's a turnover and you get your chance to capitalize. So obviously you're pleased, but just, yeah, be careful not to celebrate in their failure, or laugh at them if they fail it. Like, it's just, yeah, you want to be. I think you just got to be mindful of how are they going to feel in that circumstance. Similar to
Yeah,
how
if
you're
if
going to feel if it happens to you, because what goes
if
around
if
comes around.
if you're playing Chaos Gnome, and you are both failing multiple turns after each other, you can both start laughing at your own. Do you remember that, Wilts, when we played at the
At
pub
Booze Bowl.
sevens?
Yep.
That booze bowl, that was hilarious. Like I would fail. Failed to pick up like 5 turns in a row, and Rowan and I were both laughing at my failure. So I guess Rowan read the room and went, "Millsy's laughing at his own failure, so I can as well." And it just the game was one of the best. I've never had a bad game with Rowan. But yeah, it was just one of the best games, and we were both laughing at my failure. But the fact that I was laughing made it so much easier for Rowan to do it too. Yeah, and there
Well,
was no feel bad in there at all.
the best example of the positive vibes with Rowan specifically is the first time I played against him up in Cairns 2 years ago. He was playing his gnomes and I was playing chaos. I had a turn one blitz with my Minotaur into his tree man and knocked it down, killed it, and he's off the pitch forever. And I was starting to apologize, and Rowan's cheering louder than anyone in the room that his own tree man got blitzed off the table.
Yeah,
So that sort of put me at ease a bit, and we sort of relaxed in and had a bit more fun afterwards. But I I, I didn't know how to take that the first 3 seconds after he'd started cheering for me.
oh,
Everybody's going to have a good
if
game
you
if they're
take
playing Nomi, playing Chaos Gnome. Yeah.
Chaos Gnome, yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you can take one thing away from this podcast, people, if you get a chance to play Rowan Larder, which is Chaos Gnomes, his NAF name, do it. You will not be disappointed. It is every time I've played him, I've ranked him against my top games of all time. So, and he plays in the true spirit of we're grown men pushing plastic men around rolling math rocks. Don't take yourself serious. Be there, have fun. That's what the game's about.
Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, what else do we need to cover before we get off onto other matters? I've got one. Talking about kind of using the clock to your advantage. Another one that I think you want to be careful of is trying to talk to your opponent when it's the middle of their turn. You want to be careful about how much in-game chit-chat there is, particularly in a tournament with time's pressed. In a league, absolutely chat to your opponent and just take your time. I don't mind the fact that our league games often take 3.5, 4 hours because we are just catching up man to man. Or
That's a quick game for you, isn't it, Babs?
No, it isn't. But like I don't mind like that actually catching up with whomever you're playing. Whether it's Cat in our league or anybody else, it's a great opportunity. So we are a community. I'm loving the fact that she's posting up on our group. Oh, my house is painted now, which is great. Anyway. So yeah, just making sure that you in a tournament setting, you've got limited time for that chat. Maybe save some of that chat for over a meal. Maybe lunch or after your game's finished. So just be a bit mindful of the too much chat. I mean, you don't have no chat at all, so there's a balancing act. What about
Yeah, but
what about
certainly, like if you've just made this commanding play that's just almost put it out of reach for your opponent, uh, don't chat to them then. Like they are fully in the zone of looking at zeros and ones, trying to work out, can they pop the ball out, can they get here? So once again, read the table. If they are in serious thought pattern about what to do, don't interrupt their brainwaves with mindless chit chat. Let them do that. If you want to talk to your opponent, the best time to do it is during your turn. Well, if you know what you're doing in your turn, and you've got your plays set out ahead of time. It's like, yep, cool, let's go. And yeah, don't talk to them in the heat of battle, I suppose you could say.
yeah. What about in-game activities like stalling or fouling? Now, obviously, stalling's got a mechanism to prevent that from happening now, but it's easily
Does it?
overcome.
Yeah.
How effective is it?
Does it really?
I said it could be easily overcome. Let me finish my sentence.
Oh, well, yeah, if you get into it, like stalling and fouling, they are both part of the game. Um, and we do have this new stalling mechanism that, like you said, can be easily overcome. But, stalling is a legitimate tactic that you may have to do depending on what team you've got and what the score is and so on. So I have no problem with it. Obviously, if I can't get in there and stop them, it gets a bit, you get a bit agitated kind of thing. Not at them, but at yourself. It's like, I can't get in there. But, stalling is a thing. And so too is fouling. I suppose when it comes down to fouling, Probably the thing you should talk about most is not so much in a tournament, but in a league. If you're fouling on turn 16, um, sometimes that can be seen as bad because like you didn't need to foul and casualty my blitzer who now I'm going to miss next game with him and thanks to GW I can't fire him and get a new one. So sometimes fouling as in the last turn, being that you're fouling, you're not getting star player points for it, unless you got to play it pressed enough also. But fouling is a definite thing, and I love to do it. Just unfortunately, the teams I've been taking of late, I can't afford to because I'm usually down players and can't afford to foul back. But it is a legitimate thing. So yeah, I can't complain about it because I've done it myself. What do you
It's
guys
in the
reckon?
rules.
Yeah.
It's in the rules. Everyone gets a chance to do it. So just because I roll doubles every single time and other people seem to get away with it forever, that's not on them. That's on me more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I suppose stalling and fouling both have their inherent risks. So if you're wanting to stall or if you're wanting to foul, there is that risk involved with it. And even if you stall in turn 7, when there's no risk of getting a rock thrown at you, you are stalling and possibly giving your opponent a chance to get in there and sack the ball carrier down or whatever. So, if you're choosing to do them, yeah, you know the pros, you know the cons, and like I said, Wilts, they're both in the rule book, so you can't say no, let's not do that. You know, there's only been one time I played Bretonians. Wow, back in like 2011 or 2012, back when they weren't even actually a real team, and they were being talked about by Plasmoid, and he's got this roster, and so we adopted them in our league, and I actually came up with fluff for my team. It's like, no, my guys are very virtuous; they will never foul. And I had been known as the fouling king in the season before. I said, no, no, no. These are Bretonians. They're noble knights. They will not foul. So I went the entire season. Oh, it damn near killed me, but I went the entire season without throwing a foul. But that was my my fluff that I put on my team that I put there. So, um, yeah, fouls are fouls. Go for it, and the more gang fouls, the better.
Yeah, all right. What about allowing an opponent to take back a move or a decision that they've made? When is it okay? What about if they move player one, then they move player two, then they move player three, then they go, oh, I want to move player one somewhere else. I haven't rolled any dice. Can they do it?
As long as
Yes
everyone
and
can
no.
remember and be clear which players came from where, up to a point, I'm not too against it, but it will depend on how clear the board state is, where where everything is in relation to each other, and just how critical that one different square might make things moving to the tactical blitz or something like that. If it's like, oh, I should have put him in this square instead of that square where they're right next to each other, I've got no issues at all. But if it's, oh, instead of moving over here, I should have moved over here after you've moved two other people already, that might be straining the friendship a bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty much 100% with you on that one, Wilt. It's like, you know, going back one play is not a problem. Going back two and three, yeah, I think the biggest problem, and like you've already highlighted, is were they in that square? Once you've moved them, and then you've moved another guy, and then you've moved another guy, and you go, oh well, I'll go back and I'll go to a different direction or whatever. Do you remember where that player actually was? That's the biggest thing for me. But generally speaking, I'm quite happy to go back one player at any time. Two, yeah, getting back three, it's like, no, come on. And by this time, also, they're taking up time on the clock or in the game time as well. So, um, yeah, let's just try and be nice and clear. But if it's a new player that's never played the game before, dude, take it back. Yeah, do it. I'm here. I'm basically, even if I'm on a tournament, I'm teaching you how to play. I actually coach in a tournament. I coached a guy to beat me. He was a new player, and I'm just got into it. And it's just like, oh dang, I lost that match. Now, now I'm down here. But just part of the, I don't know, the teacher in me, wanted them to have a good experience, and Yeah, it's a tricky one. What do you do, Babs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the default is if they've rolled a single die roll, even if it's a rush, that's cemented. That's it. They're locked in then.
Yeah.
If they haven't rolled any dice at all, as you say, how clear is it where they came from? If there's any ambiguity or any kind of debate, I think you just go no. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think really it's preferable not to let them, but you also don't want them to have a real feel bad. So it's a tricky one as to when it's not okay to let them take it back. I think you gotta, yeah, as you say, read it a bit. I mean, obviously, if it's already 3-0 and the decision's made, let it happen. If on the other hand it's a super tight game and yeah, if there's any ambiguity at all, I probably wouldn't. It's hard though. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Well, what about post game? Game's all done. What do you do at the end of the game? What's normal? I reckon a handshake's a good idea. Always say good game.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things definitely the handshake, but one of the things you want to look out for not doing post game is then talking about, your opponent might say they got the win. You don't want to be throwing out comments like, yeah, but if only my guy had picked this up, I would have beaten you. Like that kind of, it's like throwing mud at the wall kind of thing. It's like you're basically saying to your opponent, well, you weren't good enough to beat me. The dice beat me in this game, and that's a thing that always rubs me the wrong way if I see people doing it. So just be careful. Just go, and it's quite okay to go, oh yeah, if only I had made that roll, that's not a problem. But saying that, well, you only won because I failed this is is kind of a bit of a no-no in my books, and yeah, I don't like that. What do you guys reckon?
Well, you do get circumstances where a highly unusual event, like we literally, we're about to hear from, Mushoomy. He's going to tell us about an event where literally the scatter dice needed to roll 1 in 8 for it to go the way that it did, so that an Aussie didn't win Capital Shield. Things can happen. So to
Yeah,
talk
but
about it, I think is okay, but to say, oh, you only won because of that, I think, yeah, you're right. That's a bit harsh.
yeah, I think that's the part saying you only won because of this. It's like, well, even if that dice roll, that Mushumi talks about later on, went a different way or whatever, it's like, you can only really say you won if it wasn't that close thing that kind of could have made a difference. It's like, well, were you really in a position to say you were the better coach? If you let it get down to a single dice roll, if you, in my mind, if you were the better coach, it wouldn't have come down to a single dice roll of your opponent winning or losing. So, a better coach should have had the game locked away quite a long time before them. So to to say, you only lost because it's really bad, and that did not happen. Let me put that right out here. That did not happen in New Zealand. Whilst we might know that yes, you got the good dice roll and that allowed you, there was no from either of the two coaches. There was no negative comments either way.
Yeah, look, just last thing I want to cover before we move on to a different topic, is what about if things are getting under your skin, if you feel yourself really starting to lose it, you're getting really angry. How do you handle it if you feel yourself what we call tilting, when you feel yourself, you're starting to just get really angry, really hot under the collar. What do you do?
If it's me, I just go, you know what, there's nothing I can do about this, whilst I may not like it. I've never once, um, I've never once quit a game. I've been pitch clear before, and yeah, I'll put two people on the line of scrimmage, that sort of thing. I'm just there to play the game out, ever the optimist. But there are people that might have things going on in their life that they're not in the right frame of mind. So yeah, I suppose knowing that you're about to tilt is a good thing, and if you're knowing you're about to tilt, maybe you've got a bit more control over your emotions than you thought you had. So it is a difficult one, that one.
I reckon just step away, take 5 minutes, go have a smoke. Even if you're a non-smoker, just go step outside and have a smoko for 5 minutes.
Please just not tell people to take up smoking from listening to this podcast, Babs.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying take a smoko
Get
break.
some fresh air.
Yeah, exactly. Just that 5 minutes can make the world of difference. It really can. Well, I'd like to introduce Don McKenzie, or Mushoomy is his NAF name, and he's known by that. He is actually a very significant figure in New Zealand Blood Bowl, and he has taken over the tournament organising for Capital Shield, which it has been Wellington's largest Blood Bowl tournament and has been around for quite some time. It's not the longest running New Zealand Blood Bowl tournament, that is Greenstone Cup. But it still is considered one of the more established tournaments in New Zealand. And being in the capital, Wellington, it's a significant event, and Mushoomy has really taken it to new heights. Why don't we have a listen to what he has to say about Capital Shield? Hey, look, down under World Denizens, we love our New Zealand cousins, and I say that term not just as a term of endearment, but because literally some of my cousins are New Zealanders. One of my aunts and one of my uncles lives in Parapara-Umu. So just we do have a real soft spot for our brethren down under. They might be slightly east of us across the ditch, but we kind of just call it Australasia, and we're all good. So Don McKenzie has been absolutely a key part of the New Zealand scene for some time now. I'm keen to hear a little bit more about that journey as to how he's got to where he is, running the largest New Zealand Blood Bowl tournament, and none less than its national. So welcome, Don McKenzie, to Down Under World Denizens, aka Mushoomy.
Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
We've got our standard questions here we ask all our interviewees, and usually our first question is, how and when did you first get into Blood Bowl? But knowing a little bit about your background, I'd like to say, how and when did your dad first get you into Blood Bowl?
Well, the story goes, on the way back from school one day, I popped into a games workshop for the first time, and did the paint to miniature, take it home to your dad, go, Dad, I want to get into Warhammer 40k. Except I'd taken it back to Dad, and he said, oh yeah, that's cool. Let me have a look at eBay. On eBay, he found 40k, but in order to get free shipping, he needed to get something else with it. And he had seen a 3rd edition game of Blood Bowl, the old box sets with the humans and the orcs. And at that time, back when Dad was around my age now, he was playing Blood Bowl with my uncle. And he thought, okay, cool, we'll get this. So he bought Blood Bowl off of eBay, contacted Grandma, said, hey, can you find that old Goblin team that I used to play with? So she had that shipped down, and we played one game of Blood Bowl, and we never opened Warhammer 40k.
Did you move it on, or have you still got it sealed in a box somewhere?
Nah. Warhammer was very, very swiftly moved on. We didn't even open it. From my understanding, Dad was able to sell it for more than he bought it for. So there you go.
That's a good win.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so Don, what's your favourite team to play? It can be in league, can be in tournament. We don't mind. You tell us. What's your favourite?
I think I've got 3 teams that kind of have a soft spot for me at the moment. So the first one, it has to be Lizardmen. I remember having started Blood Bowl when I was 13, 14. The first few years of my tournament circuit was full of pain. The sort of thing of bringing ogres with piling on ogres with Grack and Crumbleberry of the time, Brickfarth and Grotty, who would have been going 1 win, 5 losses at tournaments. But I think that all changed when I took Lizardmen for the first time to Capital Shield in 2017. And I don't know, something just must have clicked, because I went the 5 games, all wins, and I was like, wow, I can actually play Blood Bowl like all these people that I've been playing Blood Bowl with the past 2 years, or getting like beaten over the table by Dad for years. So Lizards have a big soft spot. then probably Underworld as well. I play a lot of Underworld. I've played quite a bit of Underworld in Australia, and in Eucbowl in about 3 weeks, I'm taking them again. I just love the team, especially since they've got that dynamism of being able to run the ball and also do a lot of fouling, which down in New Zealand, we have the phrase foul like a Mackenzie because of my father and I. So Underworld's probably that. And then Snotlings for both leagues and tournaments, because I love the whole star player play. I love playing stunty teams as well. Just a lot. I think it's just the spirit of the game is really captured by stunties. And at the moment, Snotlings with Bullseye just really feels like awesome Blood Bowl to me.
So is there a shirt that says "foul like a Mackenzie" or "I'm fouling like a Mackenzie"? Because and I thought you were going to say your other team was Snotlings because they foul even better than Underworld. I thought...
Well, I have thought about getting a foul like a Mackenzie shirt for Christmas for Dad one year, but there's a part of me that wants to get bribe tokens done up that says foul like a Mackenzie on one side. I think that'd just be great.
That'd be awesome. Now you obviously play a lot of tournaments. Do you get the time to play League, and do you have a preference for playing League matches or tournaments?
Yep. No, so for a while, I was also commissioner of the Wellington League. I've since passed that on to Angus, or Fungus is his NAF name. And I think that's currently sitting at 20 coaches, which is pretty good for Wellington. I would have started out in the league when I was about 14, 15, and Dad would have to drag me down to the pub and play his games at the same time. In terms of preference, I think I do prefer tournament play, largely because roster building is such a large part of what I enjoy about Blood Bowl. And in league play, I'm a bit too impatient. Like, I want to get block on my Bloodspawn now.
I'll just give it to him. I shouldn't have to wait.
Exactly. But I do like league play as well. And I think in terms of talking about Blood Bowl, especially to friends, I think that's who don't have a Warhammer or Blood Bowl bone in them. I think league play is quite a fun one to talk with people who don't know about Blood Bowl, because they can all relate to like a fresh Fox Meadows, let's say, entering the Blood Bowl scene and then building up to superstar status before taking an injury to the ankle and dying.
Absolutely.
That sums up Blood Bowl.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite league moments was in the New Zealand Online League, Dibble, where I had built up this legend bull centaur, and it took me years to do this. And Dad's playing Underworld at the time, and he's got him surrounded for a gang foul. And he looks at me and he goes, "All right, you ready for this? 3, 2, 1." And he hits the foul button, and that fumble sounds to accompany it, as Dad looked me in the eyes as he kills my legend bull centaur. So maybe that's why I have a bit more of a preference toward tournaments play.
Most tournaments let your players come back.
Exactly.
So, look, imagine for a moment that GW have seen the awesome work you've done in the New Zealand community, and they want to pick your brain. So they out of the blue, Tom, the new developer for Blood Bowl, contacts you and says, "Hey mate, I'm going to adopt one thing you recommend. Is there one thing you would change about the current edition of the game? Maybe it could be an adjustment to a team. Would it be a new team you add? Would it be a rule you want to change? What would you do?"
I think there's probably one thing that comes to mind at the moment, where they had switched dwarfs, which isn't a team I get to play an awful lot, from having strength access to devious. And I think at the moment, I mean, if you look back at the old star players, you had Boom, or Boomer, I think it was his name was.
Yeah,
You
Boomer
had
is
other,
awesome. Yep.
yeah, and you had other dwarf secret weapons. So it's a little bit of a shame that dwarves, they gain these devious skills, but they don't have any of those secret weapons around besides the Death Roller. So I think that'd be interesting to bring those star players back, bring the devious nature really back to the dwarf teams, who kind of need something at the moment.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they really need a rostered positionals with the secret weapons rather than just only being star players, which currently are missing.
Yeah,
Now, have you played with a lot of star players? Being that you've played Underworld and Snotlings, I would tend to imagine that you have. And do you have any favorites?
I have played a bit with star players. In tournament play, I do like to experiment with rosters quite a bit. So you will see me take, for instance, a giant with Shambling Undead in Dunedin, or you'll see me take Grim Iron Jaw with dwarfs. I think at the moment, my favorite star player would have to be Ripper. At Cane Toad Cup this year, there was an excellent moment with Ripper where I had already bullseyed Kiltane's ball carrier down 2 times that half, but both times the ball bounces into one of his blitz's hands. And I was like, no, it can't be. But in a large ditch effort, Ripper, he goes, you know what? I've got the armor for this. Ripper declares a throw team in action, and he does a 5+ dodge out of a tackle zone, goes for it twice to pick up a snotling on the ground, throw him at the ball carrier, hits him with bullseye. And I think that moment has just solidified Ripper as my favorite star player, despite the ball, despite the ball bouncing into Kiltane's blitz's hands for a third time.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, no, it was a
That was a pretty
fantastic
memorable
game.
one. Yeah, I remember Stratty coming up to me afterwards, and he's gone, "Oh, you won't believe what he just did!" Like Stratty must have been close to you when you did that play, and he was telling me all about it. It's like, "Oh, that's nuts!" So that's sweet
I
as.
think I think the play that everyone would have heard though was get a stab getting the tripwire end zone to equalize the game, and my loud profanity that went across the hall in Brisbane.
I was just going to say I've done a similar move to your Ripper play, but with a Snotling Troll. In the previous edition, he made a 5+ dodge away from a pack of dwarves, grabbed the Snotling with the ball, went to lob him downfield, but accidentally threw him sideways into the crowd instead. It was hilarious.
It'd be great if the throw teammates into the crowd, if the player could re-enter like the ball would.
Yeah. The thrown player gets thrown back in by the crowd just as if
Yeah.
they were the ball. That would be good.
That would be sweet. Yeah. All righty. On to our final question. This one has actually nothing to do with Blood Bowl, other than the fact that hopefully you make it over to here for Tournament of Champions and you come up to sunny Rockhampton and we go out for a pub meal on the Friday night. What's your go-to pub meal?
My go-to pub meal would most certainly just be a classic burger. Down in Wellington, every August we have a festival called Burger Wellington, and it's traditionally the most expensive time of year for me. It would be the sort of thing that sometimes my lunch one day will be a burger, and then the dinner that same day would be a burger, and then the next morning I'd be so clogged up that I wouldn't want to have a burger for breakfast. But then come lunchtime, I'll have a burger. So you can't go wrong.
Pretty much says it all.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Don, obviously we had a few Aussies make the trek over for Capital Shield just recently. Now you had was it 102 registered coaches that registered, and then you ended up not quite making that number? Is that do I have those numbers right?
So it was a really crazy period, right? Because the thing that we had to understand is this was the first ever New Zealand NAF National, so there was a lot of people wanting to be there for it. And I remember sitting at work having just opened up the registrations, and then within 8 hours, the first 72 registered had already sold out. And suddenly it was like, oh, damn, I have to find a new venue. And then after finding a new venue, the additional capacity was over still. So total, we had about 122 registrations. But because of FOMO, FOMO, cost of living, in the end, we had 91 coaches on the day, which is still impressive. I think the main thing that needs to be said is in New Zealand, prior to this, like the average tournament gets maybe 30 people. It's not quite like your cane toad cups or your eucalyptus bowls. So to have 90 was just such a huge occasion.
Mm. Yeah, I think it makes
And
it the largest Blood Bowl event in New Zealand ever. Is that correct?
Yeah, beating out the previous record of Capital Shield the year prior, 56 people.
Yeah, well, I think
And
Ausbowl
then
State it beats Ausbowl State championships as well.
if you combine the state champs with the Open, yep, correct.
Yep. So we had 2 Queenslanders come down, and four New South Welshmen make the trip east to raid for PAV points. Fill us in. How did we go?
Do I have to?
Chatter tells me what the net result was.
Look, it was fantastic having them down. Rabbit, Cully, and Hutchie have been they went to the previous Capital Shield, and it's been great the friendship that I've formed with the three of them. But we had Madrorda come down as well. He's beaten me twice in our 2 tabletop clashes, so I'm shaking fist at the moment. We had Lack of Cheese and Killer Coach from Queensland as well. And it was fantastic following along because for the longest period of time, it just looked like a clean sweep from the Aussies. But we did have a hero in Mr. Mike Loss, who in the 3 games that he faced New South Welshmen, managed to take all 3 New South Welshmen that he played out. However, he did take the fall to the mighty Lack of Cheese from Queensland. So I'm not too sure what that means in terms of the 3rd State of Origin game coming up, but I imagine that means something.
I'm sure it means something, but what it means to each person might vary quite dramatically.
But no, it was fantastic following along. And in the last round of Capital Shield, it was a 6-round tournament, which is quite different for New Zealand. We tend to do a 5-game tournament, similar to in Queensland, to allow people to get home on time. But in the last round of the tournament, on the top 4 tables, it was all Aussies on each one against a Kiwi. And that final round was just so fantastic to watch. So on table 4, we had Rabbit against Rane, and Rabbit managed to get a 3-0 win up against the Lizards, which, yeah, that's a bit harsh. Then Madrorda managed to get a draw on table 3 against Mahuika, who's also a Path Raider. Table 2 was Hutchie against Mike, and Mike, as preluded, beat the New South Welshman. So on top table, it was Lack of Cheese against Sandjune. And that was just such a nail biter of a game. I spent most of my time sat by it just because both of them were playing their hearts out and it was so entertaining. But the added drama for it is that an Australian has never won Capital Shield before. And at that point, Dimitri was on 5 wins on top table, and Sandjune was on 4 wins and a draw. So Sandjune needed to win the tournament. And Dimitri comes in and he does a 4+ dodge, sacks the ball carrier, and it bounces in a whole bunch of tackle zones. They go a turn apiece, nothing really happens. Sandjune hits a player and he goes onto the ball and he goes, right, I really need to roll a 3 for the scatter. Puts down his dice cup and he lifts it up, and lo and behold, it's a 3. And Dimitri drops to the floor, and everyone in the room who's been watching it for not just the PAV reasons, but for the national, not to get Aussies have their name etched into the shield. The room just blew up. So it bounced off of his own Elven Blitzer into a free square. So all he needed to do was a 2+ dodge, 2+ pickup, run into touchdown. And it was just tremendous. So that's the moment I will talk about and I'll emphasize. But in terms of the total PAV result, it was a little bit of a bloodbath. Going into the I might need to fact check myself on that. Going into the tournament, I think we're at +6 towards the Kiwis. But coming out of Capital Shield, it's now +6 to Australia, which is just
Aussie, oi, oi, oi.
It's just out of reach for me to pull back at Eucbowl. So it's looking pretty safe. So I guess you have Rabbit and Hutchie, Cully, Killer Coach, Lack of Cheese, and Majorda to thank for retaining the PAV this year.
That's a pretty strong Eucbowl practice squad rating the national championships over in New Zealand.
Yeah, it was. I remember. Obviously, I couldn't get over to it, so I was watching and updating on because it was played on BBTM and just kept updating. I just wanted to see these results and just like seeing where all of the guys are going, and it's like, oh, Dimitri's on 5. He's going to take it out. He's on the top table. All right, and then I just kept refreshing to see how many touchdowns, how many this, how many that. So I can only imagine what it would have been like in the venue. With everyone looking on, it would have been amazing.
But I think we really showed them Kiwi hospitality as well. Like I hadn't really spent too much time with Dimitri and Nick, Killer Coach, prior to this tournament. But we went out for breakfast on the Monday, and it was fantastic catching up with them. And also on the Friday, Dimitri and I had a walk up Mount Coco, and yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. The PAV Raiders couldn't have been a nicer bunch of blokes.
Nice. Hey, and just in probably news to you, the Australasian Regional Tournament organizer, that's Rabbit himself, or James, has actually issued a decree that no Blood Bowl tournament is going to be approved on the same weekend as Capital Shield next year, just to make sure that as many Aussies as possible can get to Capital Shield as possible. So I don't know whether you're going to see that as good news or bad news, but I personally think it's probably fairly deserving in the same way that, we try and make sure that there aren't clashes with Eucalyptus Bowl and Big V. I think Capital Shield needs to take its place amongst them. So, so hit us up. Do we have a date yet for Capital Shield 2027?
Nothing's locked in just yet, but the talk with the venue, which is, I guess, a little bit exclusive, I haven't said anything about this yet, is the 19th and 20th of June next year. So that would most likely take place 2 weeks before Eucalyptus Bowl, to allow for any international travelers that are out there to fly into New Zealand, have your little bit of a 2-week skiing holiday, see the sights before flying into Sydney for the Australasia Major. So trying to make it close together like that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you have been recently on Aotearoa giving the rundown of Capital Shield. Anything else you would like to highlight for our listeners about Capital Shield?
It's a fantastic event. I know that might be slightly biased of me to say, but because in the New Zealand community, we must have somewhere between 100 to 120 registered NAF coaches at the moment. And it's a fantastic tournament to host, in the sense that as people are walking in and I'm signing them off, I can say, hey, mate, to the majority of coaches and know their name firsthand. So it's a really tightly knit community, and the Capital Shield is just such a celebration of the past 20 or so plus years of New Zealand Blood Bowl and the community that we've built around it. So I don't think there's any other tournament like that out there, in the sense that you can go and it's very easy to, I guess, find your corner of the room in a regular tournament and not feel a part of it. But in terms of Capital Shield, like, it's a very connecting sort of thing. The other side of it as well is we still yet to have an international win Capital Shield, including Australia. And I'm going to be so incredibly smug year on year as we keep holding this record up. So if you want to challenge me and get an Australian's name on the Capital Shield, really lock in those dates for next year.
The challenge has been set, listeners. Hear the call. Let's muster. Let's go.
Do we need to crowdfund getting Kiltane over there so he can win everything?
Well, famously, he was signed up, and when he found out that everyone was pitting the mighty cannon fodder up against him, he famously went, "Oh no, I can't have that upset happen."
Ooh.
Too afraid of the fodder.
Yeah. I've got a little quick question. Getting back to like I said, I was spectating from over here in Oz. So you ran this on BBTM, and I
Hmm.
know Rabbit is going to be doing that for Eucbowl. So it's kind of relatively new, that software here, in Australia anyway. So how did it go? Like, was it easy to run? But is there anything you can tell us about BBTM? Is it something that we all should be looking into to host our own tournaments now?
What I'll say is that it's a game changer. The difference between my stress levels as a TO between last year's Capital Shield and this year's in terms of tournament management was just night and day. Um, One thing about it is it doesn't really have that high cost against it because if you don't donate, at least it's free. Um, so from a cost perspective, it's fantastic. From a tech perspective, it runs super smoothly. I didn't run into any issues on the weekend, and if I had, having Arlo be on tech support because Arlo is part of New Zealand community and he's worked on the software himself. He's able to just say, "Hey, look, nope, you just need to click at that button." Whenever I was lost, so it was just fantastic from that perspective as well. But from a player's perspective, because we've used it in New Zealand at least maybe over the past 9 months or so, and it's largely become the preferred tournament software amongst the New Zealand tournament circuit. I think basically every New Zealand tournament this year has run off of it. I think that's as large an endorsement as you can get outside of the Australasia major also picking it up because I don't know, Rabid he can be a little bit old school in terms of that. So for him to pick up a new software after having seen how smoothly everything ran at Capital Shield is a huge endorsement, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, just to put an even more positive spin on that, I think he is very protective of making sure Eucalyptus Bowl runs really well because he's done it
Yeah.
excellently ever since he has. And so obviously he's, very risk averse to picking up something that, potentially is going to add, a failure. And so he has to have, pretty much complete assurity that it's going to run smoothly to pick it up. So, he's decided to do that for Blood Bowl Tournament Manager. I think it's an excellent decision. I'm looking forward to seeing how it runs.
Is there any particular story that goes behind your NAF name?
Not really. Um, when I was a young chap, I think well before Blood Bowl, I wanted to start playing Minecraft. And at the time, I had come up with the Minecraft username Smashroom, which going up to my dad saying, "Hey, Dad, I want my username to be Smashroom. It's like a smash mushroom." Um, but I guess it could also be read as a room to smash in. Dad went, it's kind of a lame name. Here, how about you do Mushoomy? It's like Mushroomy without an R. And it just stuck since then. So even the smallest layer of my NAF name, I can have my dad to thank.
Fair enough.
Retroactively speaking, for listeners who are tuning in, I'm hoping that my future self will have performed excellently at the Eucalyptus Bowl and to have listeners check into the Eucbowl standings after listening to this episode and see me, I reckon, top 10.
That's the
He's
way.
putting the call out.
And if not, I want people to hit me up and go, ha, 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 ha.
Well, there's 123 coaches registered last I checked. So your top
That's
10's
awesome.
a big call.
Yep.
Which team are you
top
bringing
10.
over for a holiday?
Taking the Underworld with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, should be good.
Whatever you bring, you just hope you know how to play against orcs.
Yeah, I've got
There's
a
25 orc
claw.
teams.
Yeah, I saw that. I do have a claw blitzer, so I'm hoping. But the fact that I'm hoping in the first place might say something to my strategy.
Yeah, you keep that claw blitzer away from my slan. We like our armor 9.
So any other trips to Oz in the pipeline?
Not at this stage. I'm returning to studies, so my Blood Bowl budget is having to tighten up a fair amount because of that. But I always do look at Australia tournaments. I love the Australian Blood Bowl community. And if it weren't for the Australian Blood Bowl community being so welcoming Since like at least this time at Eucalyptus Bowl, I'm going to be the only Kiwi coming up. And if it weren't for the Australian community being so welcoming and meeting people at these large tournaments and not getting to play and wanting to play them, like I would go up like as often as I do. I think the next one is most likely to be ASC or the ASC Open next year in Canberra. But again, I'll just have to look at my Blood Bowl budget and see.
Well, if you're there, I'll see you there.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, and I will see you at Eucbowl. I'll be there. So Stewie and I are representing the Down Underworld denizens. So yeah, I'll definitely come up and have another chat with you.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
And are you on the Kiwi team to Malta, New Zealand's first ever World Cup team?
I wish. But no, I haven't been able to make that work in terms of the budget.
Oh, sad.
Yeah.
There'll be more opportunities.
No, absolutely.
Never off the table, but
in terms of budget,
Well,
we'll see.
If New Zealand puts in another bid, you might be able to play in your home country. Welcome.
Maybe have it somewhere like Paraparumu, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty central. All right, mate. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
So, Mushoomy, in your most emotionally charged and excited voice, can we please get you to say the phrase, "That's brilliant"?
That is brilliant.
Nice.
Ooh, I like that one.
And I just want to add on to that, Mushy. I know we recorded this early, but your results that you predicted did not come true for the Eucalyptus Bowl. However, one of the other podcast members kind of came true. I know I said earlier that I was going to, tongue-in-cheek, said I was going to aim for a podium finish, but I went pretty close.
Ooh, so close.
So close. Yeah, I took took my Mighty Slan. I didn't take them as a meta chaser or a power gamer. I just took them because, as you've listened to the podcast, I just love playing that, and it's just something I like doing. So I wanted to take a team that I was just going to enjoy while I was down there, and met up round one with one of the 25 Orc teams available at the tournament on the day. That was my only loss of the entire tournament. After that, I finished with a record of 5-0-1. Took the Mighty Slan all the way to table 4, and I actually became equal third, but on countback, on strength of schedule, I dropped down to 4th, which is just outstanding. And I got to wear the touchdown czar cape for the final 2 rounds. I'd earned that in round 4, and then got to wear it for round 5 and round 6. So I finished with most touchdowns, and have since then checked my NAF rankings for 2025 with Slan, and currently ranked number 5 in the world.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
And I just want to say, Wilts, hurry up. Now 2 of the Down Underworld denizens have come forth at a Eucalyptus Bowl. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, but how long ago was your 4th place? So how much
Yeah,
time
let's
do
just
I
say
have?
it was a lot smaller back then. Millsy, what? In fact, I think I came equal first. I think there was 4 of us all in equal points, and I had all the tie breaks against me. Anyway, and I think Hutchie was the winner overall of that one. But anyway, moving on. This is about you, Millsy, and the amazing results. But give us a quick rundown. You were there with Stewie. Give us a quick rundown of Eucalyptus Bowl. How many coaches were there? Yeah, any other highlights you want to let our listeners know about?
Yeah. So, like I said, I believe there was 119 coaches this year. There was a couple of dropouts, and a couple couldn't make it till a bit later. That's hence why I've got an odd number there. And like I said, I went first round. I had I believe it was Mick from Wollongong.
Yeah,
I think one of your old mates. Yeah, it was my only loss of the tournament, and I thought I had outplayed him, and I'd done everything I needed to do, but he did the plays that I kind of usually do, and got it back, and he sacked me 3 times, and managed to score in turn 16 to go 2-1 over me. And I thought, oh, that's that's okay. I was really happy with my gameplay and what I'd done. Round 2, I came up against Eric, and the poor guy had never seen Slan play before, so I did my absolute best and my darndest to explain to him that, all of these two here, they do everything on a 2. They pick up, they bounce, they do this, and there's no negative modifiers, and all the rest of them do a 3. And there was a couple of turns there where he kind of had like a nice cage. I leapt in, got the ball out, and then caged up on the opposite side of the pitch, and he was just left befuddled, had no idea what to do. Really great sport. Love that game. He was playing humans. Round 3, I came up against Slan, and I was a little bit worried going into this because I've never done well against Slan, and being that I was playing Slan, my greatest advantage was nullified because I was playing someone who had the same advantage. But I ended up 2-0 over that one and 5-0 Kaz. Just went to town. So I ended day 1 on 2-0-1, and out of the group that we're staying with, we had a few of the Nibble boys, so Ken and Craig. They were staying down there, and Chris Wilcox. So I'd had the best result out of all of them. Even Dimitri had a bit of a shocker. He went down to Mad Rorter in round 1. So I remember saying to Stewie for day 2, I said, all I want is one more win. I just want to be able to go away and say I haven't had a negative win record. So, round 4, I come up against High Elves. I go, oh, okay, yeah, the tournament leading teams, and I went 3-1 over High Elves. It was just everything that my little frogs did. I wasn't playing out of my skin, but none of my fails were critical fails. They were always at the end, or I'd done everything enough first. Then round 5, I go up against Theo. Theo was the stunty leader at the time, and
another Wollongong player. Woohoo!
Another Wollongong player, yeah. So Theo had ogres, and he was leading, the stunty champion at the time. And I looked down at turn 2. I had 2 casualty and 1 in the reserves bin, and I've gone, this is not going to end well. But yeah, he had a couple of fails. There was one turn where I think 3 or 4 of his ogres boneheaded in one turn, which didn't help. But I thought I had the upper hand, and ended up getting a 4-1 win over Theo. So not to be outplayed, not to downplay Theo, but my once again my frogs just did what I wanted of them. So yeah, and then my head is peaking. I'm pinging out all over the place. I'm going up the top tables. Oh my god! And I get up to table 4 and look down. It's like, oh, High Elves again. Oh my god! What am I going to do? And I just went back in my mind and went, well, why am I here? I'm just here to have fun. I like playing these frogs, and I know what they can do. So I just did it again and went 2-0 and 2-0 Kaz, so like just complete whitewash of the board, and that put me on 5-0-1, and it's like, hang on, the top tables, did they draw or whatever? But it wasn't to be. But I was one of only 4 players that had 5 wins at the tournament, so I was just, I don't know, the adrenaline still hasn't worn out of me, and it was 2 weeks ago. It was it was just great fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to taking to the World Cup. So if anyone comes and plays Down Underworld Denizens, you will be playing Millsy and his Slan team. Hopefully I can keep my NAF ranking up there fairly highly though.
Anybody else? Obviously Theo did end up winning Stunty Cup. Took home a very nice Black Hawk Down mushroom, I think it was. Timber and resin. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to in terms of their finish? Or I think you were the highest place Queenslander. I know the North Brisbane Blood Bowl guys kind of took notice of how you finished. So hats off,
they definitely did. The chat group in North Brisbane Blood Bowl, it just lit up after my success there, and a lot of it was congratulations, well done. They were legitimately happy of what I got and proud of what I'd done. But then the call went out and said, the Sunny Coast Slam's coming up pretty soon. Let's all take Slan because we can't have this other northerner beating us. and there was a rally. There was a rally round. They were all going to be taking Slan, and I did have to be nice and say, look, I'm actually not planning on taking my Slan to the slam, so that faltered a little bit. But there was calls out of like, okay, I've got a 3D printer, I can get two printed by Friday. Does anyone else need a team? Like the call was going out, and Slan are amazing, and I take it as high praise if they were wanting to take that, because they realise Slan are capable of that, and they obviously rate me as a coach now, and that I'm someone that they'd like to emulate or to try and beat. Obviously, I think that's more of the case. They want to try and beat me, but the fact that they rate me as a coach that's worthy of concern is really high praise. So I've got to, hats off to those guys at Nibble. I know we do, give it to them a bit, but I do have to say one thing. I did finish higher than you can, so you can suck it.
And there were the results for the NAF data has been compiled on the 14th of June. So at time of recording now, it's a month old. But Slan are currently sitting on sixth spot.
I think they're around about that. Yeah,
sixth spot, 53.7% win rate. And above Wood Elves, above Skaven, above Elven Union have had a resurgence. But yeah, there's quite a lot of interesting data there. So Slan are actually doing quite well in the meta at the moment.
Yeah, I do want to add one little thing to it. It was the first time in about 6 years or 7 years that I had played without a Croxagore. And I thought, well, I can take a Croxagore, but when I take him, I tend to start wanting to hit with him and blitz with him, and he can stuff up your plans every now and then. So without taking him, I just went mass wrestle everywhere. And, the amount of people that say, oh, block is brilliant. Block is useless against wrestle, because I shut it off. That's my play style. So if anyone's listening and wants to try and maybe emulate me, Slan don't want to hurt you. If they can, that's great. Slan want to just wrestle down, put you down so they've got an open lane, so they don't have to keep doing these pogos all the time and risking rolls without a reroll. So wrestle all the way for me, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to take very similar, if not better. I think I can get an extra couple of skills at the World Cup in Malta. So look for more wrestling frogs from Australia coming to a game near you.
Just a quick side note there, Millsy. Block doesn't completely lose value against wrestle, it's just lower value. Because if you don't have block, they can always choose not to wrestle and make it a turnover instead, at the risk of taking an armor roll.
Block
still has value.
Oh, it does. I may have chosen not to wrestle. I think maybe
once or twice.
Maybe twice throughout the tournament. I chose not to wrestle because it was at a key point where that would end his turn, and I was still, I was able to capitalize from there. So I was like, yeah, well, if I end your turn, I still have the ball. You haven't got the blitz in yet, and then I can run. So. Or leap or pogo, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think there was twice in the tournament that wrestle is a skill that does not have to be used. It's a choice to use it. Every time you say, I'm not going to wrestle, we will both go down because you don't have block, you just sit there going, oh no, he's got to roll dice, he's got to break. Yeah, you're waiting for the armor to break. And another thing people may not have been aware of, I did not have an apothecary. I only had 12 players altogether, and the little squishy boys stayed on the pitch. So this time it was
squishy. They're not that squishy. Much. Yeah, I mean, other than the catches, they're 9+.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, you just protect your catches. Yeah, whenever you can.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
So just want to talk these win rates a little bit. So down the very, very bottom, this is updated as of the 14th of June. Goblins are sitting at the bottom of the pile. With a 36.5% win rate. Close on the heels are Ogres on 37.6%. Doesn't get much better for Gnomes, who are just above. I think elite skill taxes have really hurt the Gnomes, and I think also the loss of access to certain stars. They're also under 40% win rate. They're the only teams below 40%. Top 10, thought I'd just read the top 10. So we got Nurgle on 52.1% in number 10. Number 9, Underworld Denizens on 52.3.
3.
Yep. Elven Union on 52.6%. Skaven on 53.2%. Wood Elves on 53.4%. Slan, as mentioned, come in there. Number 6, 53.7%. Maybe I went from 11 rather than 10. Orcs are 54.5%. Dark Elves, 55.8%. Top 4. Old World Alliance in third spot at 55.9%. Humans are now number 2 at 56.3%. And number 1 are the new High Elves. Now, I've had to take data of a smaller sample for High Elves because their rules only dropped really effectively as of April. They are sitting at 58.5%. Wow. Big guns.
I think we'll also need to be looking at Old World Alliance because most of those numbers have the tree without loner, whereas obviously that's not the case anymore.
Yep. So they may drop
Yeah.
a little. Yeah, that's
Good
fair.
point.
Yep. The data's a little muddy there. But you also had a nice little segue there, Millsy. You mentioned the Slam. Wilts, are you coming to the Slam?
No, I'm not going to be at the Slam.
Oh,
I'm going to be playing second
Oh.
edition 40k in Brisbane instead.
yes.
that's correct.
I
Yes,
saw
I saw
an Eldar the other day that was painted up from second ed, and I was like, oh, that looks so good. I do love the models. And we're going to be chatting to somebody pretty soon, next episode, in fact, about that era of models. But yeah, Sunny Coast Slam is August 8 and August 9. It's in a new location for the first time. What's the name of the headland?
Alexander Headlands, yeah.
There we go,
Sunny
Alexander
Coast
Headland.
there.
Yeah, at the Surf Club, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's as far as I know. It's actually in the surf club, so we can get drinks and we can watch some waves and some surfing going down.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm still wrestling between 3 rosters. I know, Millsy, you're locked in, aren't you?
I've got 2 in tour play at the moment, but I'm fairly locked in. I'm after bouncing around all the time, I want to have a tournament where I don't have to think about things and can just hit things. So I will be taking a team that might be rolling a few block dice. Let's sort of at that.
Yeah,
Black
nice.
Oxen.
I did that last year to get my blocking fix in was Black Orcs. Really enjoyed them. It was the first time I played with a star player for a long time.
And I did want to say that I did chat to Laidlaw, tournament organizer for Sunny Coast Slam. It's his first big tourney, and although he's been on the team before, but he just wanted to mention on the podcast that he wanted to say, look, thank you for everybody who's assisted with the Sunny Coast Slam. There are less than 20 tickets left. He's very thankful for everybody who's chipped in and his sponsors, and he's looking forward to seeing everybody. So make sure you get along. 8th and 9th of August, if you can make it. I've already heard from one ACT coach that is thinking very strongly about coming.
Nice. And one of my old mates, one of my old proteges, Mark Irvine. Irvy, yeah, he's reached out to me the other day and said, oh, Millsy, it's been so long, I've got to get back into it. And then I've gone, yeah, do it, mate, do it. And then next day he sends me a screenshot of his registration, so he's paid up, he's in it. So, we get to see Mark again. He's chomping at the bit to get out there and meet our Blood Bowl family again. Like, there's so many people he hasn't seen for a while. So it really is a big family affair when we have tournaments here in Queensland, yeah.
100%. Hey, Millsy, you got some news about a winner of our competition.
A winner of our competition. Which winner of a competition am I talking about?
This is fair Dinkum Doozy. This is the competition you had. Was it 2 episodes ago? About and there was going to be a giveaway.
Oh yes, yeah, I do remember that one now. Yeah, that's when I was talking about how many re-rolls could you use per turn and so on. And Rabbit, yeah, James Russell Rills reached out to me on the day that we launched. So he obviously waits expectantly and patiently for our every time an episode drops, and he's listened to it straight away. And he's just reached out and he's gone, Millsy, why didn't you say the knight on a Bretonian team, because it's got one more movement, so it could use one more every time. It's like, oh, duh. Yeah, so good on you, Rabbit. I did actually present Rabbit with his prize when I was at Eucalyptus Bowl. So he's got another Amazon linewoman to add to his little list, and he was Yeah, he was pretty chuffed when he received it. Yeah.
So for
Nice.
clarity, Millsy, there's 3 different knight positions on a Bretonnian team. I'm assuming you meant the Grail Knight?
The Grail Knight. Yes, that's correct. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, I think my original example used something that only moved 6 or something like that. And yeah, and James obviously went, well, why wouldn't you start with someone who has that same skill but moves further? Not only did I want to shout him out and give him the applause that he needs, but it made me feel a bit stupid at the same time. It's like, yeah, why didn't I pick that?
So I want to run a fair Dinkum Doozy question. Are you ready for my question? And it's actually
Oh
a
yeah.
segue for a segment. All right. So here we go. I want you to tell me 2 things. The first is if you have a full team that you want to collect of 14 miniatures. All right, so let's just say 14 is the full number you want, and you want a couple of spots for star players. Very valid way to build your team. How many teams can you get from just one box? Like, just go into your local friendly gaming store and pick one box off the shelf. First part of this question is, how many teams can you grab off the shelf? They have everything you need and 14 players in them. That's the first question. Second part of this question is, how many teams in Blood Bowl 25 got cheaper from the price in Blood Bowl 2020? If you answer those 2, you will be the winner of Fair Dinkum Doozy, but that's a segue. Somebody give us an intro.
Babs, pull your head in, mate. This is right up the alley for our pull your head in segment. This is when somebody's got some sort of hot take, and it's obviously wrong because the other 2 members of the podcast get to give a bit of a rebuttal. But Babs, I think you're riding your high horse here about your sprue bowl and your hatred of Games Workshop. So I'm loving it, mate. And without further ado, Babs, you can lead us in with our first ever Pull Your Head In segment.
All right. So this segment is called Pull Your Head In, which is what Millsy tells me to do every second day, right, Millsy?
Well, if you call every day, I can do it more often.
So, look, I think I really want to start a new segment where we have the opportunity to do what others might call hot takes, or what else are they called on other podcasts?
Ranting and raving.
What does Get the Ref call theirs? Unpopular opinion. All right, so yeah, the way we're going to run it down under All Denizens is one of the 3 of us are going to have 5 minutes to put their case, and then they have to be quiet and let the other 2 respond. And so, this is the opportunity to put forward a controversial topic. So it's not cut and dry. It's not clear cut. It's not something that everybody's going to agree with, but something that, they feel passionate about. So I actually toyed with the idea of calling it Tirade Parade, but we decided to go with something a little bit more Aussie, more ochre. Pull your head in. So are we ready for
Well,
this,
it'd be a
lads?
tirade for a start. That's a slightly different pronunciation.
Pronunciation's not my strong suit, is it, Millsy?
It is not at all.
All right. So here we go. All right. Look, you've heard it on the podcast lots of times, and I want to bury the hatchet and get it off my chest so I don't have to keep going on and on and on about it forever and a day about Sprue Bowl. Right. So this 5-minute rant is about why in particular I don't like it. Now, before we dive in there, I do want to say a couple of caveats. And that is, I want to say that, look, elite skills, I'm personally a fan of, and it sits separate in my head to that. I think the playtesters have also done a really brilliant job. So I don't want to cast any shade on them either. I think they've made, the best job they possibly can do out of a difficult set of circumstances. But I just want to drill into what actually, a lot of the podcasters say, look, we like this Sprue Bowl approach because it makes getting into the game a lot cheaper. And I just want to push back on this. All right. So I've run the numbers. I've looked at all 30 teams and actually had a look at, do you know how many teams are actually cheaper to get now than they were under Blood Bowl 2020? The answer is actually 4. Already Amazon's, you got 12 players in a box. Already Necromantic Horror, you got 14 players in a box. Those guys didn't need anything else. Every other team needed something. Now that they've said you don't need all the positionals, it's worthwhile just pausing and saying, okay, but as a collector of the game, how many models do you actually want? How many miniatures do you actually think is a good enough for a full team? Now, most of us will go, well, you want 16 models. So if you approach it from not even 16, if you approach it from 14 and maybe a couple of star players, then the situation is actually there's almost no difference whatsoever to the price of how many boxes you need. So it's been a very clever ploy by GW Corporate to have the appearance of the teams getting cheaper. But in actual fact, you don't actually get any savings whatsoever because you're going to buy a second box for the extra lineman instead. And of course, you're still going to need your big guys with trolls and ogres and rat ogres and other things, which are either plastic or Forge World. And because there's less positionals now, the issue is that makes these teams even more dependent upon bringing extra players with skills. Where do you get those players with skills? Forge World star players. So arguably, collecting these teams has now become more expensive, and the game itself has actually become even more dependent upon star players than it was under the previous edition, which, as Millsy said, he doesn't personally like star players running around a lot. And I think this reduced positional set of Blood Bowl 2025 we've got is actually more dependent upon star players than it was before. So I personally thought Corporate did it to kind of try and stick it to the third-party sculptors, but I actually don't think it's made really a dent. I actually think it hasn't, because by the time you actually weigh up the cost of all these extra things you're going to need, all these Forge World stars and so on, it's still going to be worth it to just go third party. Now, what has it actually done? Well, it's basically meant a couple of things that I don't personally like for the game. I've talked about already, it's more dependent upon star players. The other thing it's meant is teams now can afford more re-rolls, which means teams therefore fail a little less, therefore games go a little longer. And it also means that in a league setting, teams are going to run out of things to spend money on within a couple of games. There's really nothing much to spend your money on other than re-rolls and maybe the occasional line elf. So, I think the game loses the ability to be saving for extra positionals, extra things, because there's just less of them in most teams. So, I think it becomes, therefore, the leagues become less interesting as a result. And therefore, the length of a lot of leagues are being revised downwards to make leagues shorter in length, which I don't think is great. So, in short, I just think that this whole idea of reducing the number of positionals on teams has reduced the design of what positions you're going to take on a team. Now, you could argue that maybe there's more variety of skills now, but I'm not sure that that's true. And I think you actually, in some cases, get less choice because you have a limited number of positionals to skill up. And I think, you get more standardized build in a tournament scenario. And so I guess it's just going to become even more bland than I think the previous edition was fairly soon. Now, we're not there yet, but and I do think I'm going to get over this. I think I'm going to move on with my life, but I really don't think that it actually is a negative overall to the Blood Bowl playing experience. But that all said, I'm going to get over it very soon, move on with my life. Blood Bowl's still Blood Bowl, and I'm still having a great time playing my game. So I guess in short, I'm going to move on with my life, and it just means I'll have a new trait. Do you know what that trait's going to be? It's going to be hatred of Sprue Bowl. Out from me.
Okay, well, I'm going to have the first rebuttal. First couple of things I've got to say. Babs, show me on this doll where GW touched you, because it seems like you have this massive vendetta against them, that they've done you bad. Secondly, dude, your argument was all over the shop. The discussion was about the game being cheaper. And the only thing you said was, well, now you need more linemen, so you have to get an extra box, which is what we used to have before. You needed extra positionals to get an extra box. So it actually comes out at the exact same price. The fact that, you've still got to buy big guys, that's irrelevant because you had to buy big guys before. You're talking about now that you need to have more star players to make them whatever it is. But let's go back to the original rant. And you're saying GW have said that the game is cheaper to get into because everything comes in a box. That is actually 100% true. Now, the power gamers and the meta chasers will go, no, well, I don't get the best of this and I don't get the most of that and blah, 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 so I'll never play again. Well, good on you. Sod off, losers. Don't need those sort of people in our game. But from GW's standpoint, and I can't believe I'm sticking up for them, the game is actually cheaper to get into because you can literally buy one box, play the game. Now, is it optimal? No. But as you get to play this game, so like a newbie buys it, gets into it, only need one box. After they play a few games and they get better and then they start going to tournaments and doing all these other things, then like every gamer everywhere, they're going to buy more boxes, more miniatures and so on. But the premise of the argument was the game cheaper to get into? And 100% it is. There's my take on it.
I'm going to say that you're both wrong because it's not any cheaper to get into, but it's also not more expensive to get into. It's exactly the same price. Because to get into the game and start playing, you just need to buy a box, some dice, and away you go. Now, in the previous edition, buying a box meant you didn't have the full set of positionals for a team. Didn't stop you from playing and getting into it and having fun. Buying a box now and getting all the positionals on the roster means there's less versatility for an experienced player to build with, but it's still a box, get into it and start playing. So, from the standpoint of someone who's never played the game before, it's neither cheaper nor more expensive. It's exactly the same as it was last year. It's no different.
And that's the final word. That's all you need to say, Wilts. That's it. Dead in the water now. Pull your head in, Babs. Pull your head in, mate.
Both of you pull your heads in.
Well, I'm not allowed to respond, so I'm biting my tongue. I so want to say, but what about the assassins on the Dark Elf team? But I can't say anything. I'm not allowed.
But that didn't change, so that's
That
irrelevant.
didn't change. Yeah.
It's
the same with big guys
Millsy
and star players. They never
about
change.
big guys and star players. It's irrelevant because that didn't change.
Yeah.
It's neither cheaper nor.
Yeah, my point is, if they'd released a Forge World booster for every other team, it would have actually been a cheaper option again. But that was never going to happen. So
yes,
they
that's
would
right.
never have done that. And Forge World coming to Australia costs you an arm and a leg. It would have been way more expensive.
all right, we're up to the news section and final shout out. So some news. Wilts, tell us some news. What's been going down in Blood Bowl?
We have an update that Grebo will have a physical shop presence at the Malta World Cup, which is fantastic. We'd like to give them a big shout out for helping the World Cup organising committee and getting some extra goodies for people to pick up while they're at the event. And also, Blood Bowl 3, or rather, Warhammer Blood Bowl is the official title for the new version that they were working on, was it? Or
That's right, correct.
Yeah.
So, fans of Blood Bowl 3 will no doubt have seen it potentially already. But the Warhammer Blood Bowl upcoming update to the current edition of the rules has been saved. Slytherin Studios has taken over publishing the game, and they will be overseeing it into the near future and into launch very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, now Cyanide is still developing it, but underneath Slytherin. So they've kind of Slytherin now own the rights for the digital game. So they actually have the copyright rights for the publishing rights for Blood Bowl, but Cyanide Studios are still producing it. And a lot of the people who know what they're talking about are really excited by that because Slytherin are no strangers to Warhammer's intellectual property. They've produced a number of games in the 40k universe, is my understanding. I've never played any of them, but apparently they've done very well. And Grebo have, or at least the World Cup organising team, have leaked their exclusive team that they are producing for, that Grebo are producing for the World Cup, and we've seen the first miniature. It is a goblin holding a pastizzi. It's got to be a team that can take a goblin. So I'm assuming it could be orcs, black orcs, goblins, or underworld.
The goblin's wearing a very fashionable helmet, though, so I'd potentially be leaning towards Black Orcs at this stage.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, that's a historical reference to Malta. That helmet style is definitely from that era and location. But yes, it does make sense that they would be a slightly tougher goblin.
What better way to represent Thick Skull than an actual iron helmet? Iron or steel? either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I do love it. I heard that Janino, who we interviewed last episode, hates mushy peas so much he went back to Grebo and said, "You've sculpted the wrong pastizzi. That's the mushy peas pastizzi. You've got to change it. It's got to be the other one."
Hey, I stand by that. I totally agree.
But we've
Having not
had some,
sampled a pastizzi yet, I'm still definitely firmly of that opinion.
I'm definitely hung at the bit for one. Yeah.
but Millsy, there's more news. Tell us what else is news in Blood Bowl world.
That is not the only model that's just been released or leaked. GW or Warhammer, as they want to be called now, have put out a leak, and they've got a new Morg, a new Minotaur, and a new Rat Ogre. I'm loving it. The fact that you can make 3 different versions of each of these. So, I've heard a lot of chatter around the websites and so on that a lot of people are getting the Morg model and just getting them as an extra ogre for their team. Once again, you can't fault the sculpts. I really like the sculpts and the fact that they're coming out in plastic. I think this is big. I've listened to a few podcasts and just kind of they've said the same as me. Wow, these are really cool models and so on. But I think what we're missing here is the bigger picture is we no longer have to go through Forge World. We no longer have to pay Forge World prices, and here in Australia, Forge World postage as well. I can go into my local Friendly Lake gaming store and pick one of these up. They can be on the shelves. So not only is that amazing for these 3, but I've had a thought of are there more coming? Is this the way that Warhammer are going to sort of put it out to the masses now? Are we going to be getting big guys that we can purchase in store? And if so, mate, sign me up. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I think it's a brilliant move. I think a lot of people in the Blood Bowl community have missed it, but having them in plastic is great for that exact reason. It means your friendly local gaming store can stock them and obviously, get their percentage. So it supports the local friendly gaming stores. It means every Warhammer store will have them, unlike Forge World, which very, very few stores stock. Literally in Australia, there are only 2 Warhammer stores in the whole country that actually have Forge World in stock. That's massive. It's a big shift there, but also I love the fact that the plastic means there's multiple options, there's multiple pose. Now, it's been a long time since, you choosing a star player or a big guy comes with multiple head options, but we're back there. It's great. I'm here for it. I love it. I love the fact that there's 3 different Morgan Thorgs, 3 different Minotaurs, 3 different Rat Ogres. I think it's brilliant. The other thing I love is genuinely here, we have Games Workshop actually thinking of us with the 7s release. You know how they're thinking of us with the 7s release? They're thinking of us because we don't have to buy the pitch to get the rules, right? If you remember, Gutter Bowl, you had to buy it to get the rules. They've separated it. You can just pick up the spike. You don't have to get the pitch to get the rules. Good work. This is exactly what we want to see, Warhammer. Keep it up. Brilliant. I was going to say that there is a corollary that is probably in preparation for this. The website no longer, like if you go to the Warhammer website, I don't think you can get the Rat Ogre, the Minotaur, and the Forge World Troll. That's the resin troll. I think it's called the Armored Troll. I don't think they're available anymore. I think they've already run out of stock of those. They've obviously stopped producing them logically. And the other bit of interesting, not quite sure what's gone on is we still haven't seen back into Blood Bowl 25 Bryce the Slice Cambuel or Frankenstein. I'm not sure why they've not made it into the new edition. I'm curious to know what's going on there. I've only heard a sniff of a rumor, nothing that I particularly want to give airtime to.
Yeah, I've heard the same rumours with both Frank and and it would be purely speculation. So there's no use us, launching with incorrect information. So where are they? Are we due to get a really big almanac with Bryce and Frank, and let's get Ramtut back in there, Prince Moranian as well. Let's bring back these 100%. Old stars.
Yeah, and speaking of, we don't want to be incorrect, there is a couple of things we do need to correct. In episode 25, we made a suggestion potentially that you could have maybe interpreted what we said, that team captain, you could use that team captain special rule to keep a team mascot role that you had not succeeded with. I don't think that's certainly been cleared up now with the FAQ. And the other bit of news that we weren't quite accurate with was that you do only need one document to bring to your Blood Bowl tournaments, and that's the NAF version. The NAF version now has all the official Warhammer clarifications and errata built into it. So you just need to print out the NAF version. You don't need to bring along your Warhammer version unless you want to. It has all the corrections you need included in it. But do check your tournament rules pack as to whether there's anything any TOs want to differ in their opinion over.
And I just want to jump in there while we're at that, because I've heard over the last few months about several people banging on about the NAF shouldn't make rules and so on and so forth and so on. And one of the best arguments I heard for that actually came from you, Babs, and it came from the rules of football, or here in Australia we call it soccer, but football it's known as worldwide. The rules for that game are out there. Now, if you'd like to play in the World Cup, FIFA is hosting that tournament, and FIFA will put in extra rules or clarifications of their requirements to compete in their FIFA World Cup, their tournament. So for the people saying the NAF shouldn't be doing this, it's like, well, no, Games Workshop do own the game. It is their rules. But if you're going to a NAF tournament, these are the clarifications that the NAF wants to use. And they've made the changes. So where GW has come in and put out their FAQ, those are included in there. And if there was anything that was different from what NAF had originally, they got changed. So the NAF are not overruling the GW's FAQ. They're including it along with the other provisos that playing in a NAF registered tournament requires you to do. So I just want to put a call out for those people that might have been banging on and saying the NAF have overstepped the mark. They haven't. It is their tournament that they're putting on. And they're using a set of rules that was developed elsewhere, much the same way as FIFA. The rules of football were developed elsewhere, but if you're going in their tournament, these are the provisos you must take. So please take it with a grain of salt, people, and please stop hating on the NAF. They're doing a bang up job for us.
Yeah, one other thing I got incorrect is how many Gold Coast leagues we have in Queensland. I just want to put that in as a little errata here. There are actually three Blood Bowl leagues happening on the Gold Coast. One out of Good Games, which has moved to Robina, and they have one at Broad Beach as well. There is a second league operating out of T3 Games, which are in Burleigh Heads, although west of the freeway, so Fairway in. And thirdly is Gamers Village out of Coomera. Did I get that right?
Coomera, Babs. How many times do I have to say it? Coomera.
So there you go. So there's three Gold Coast leagues playing Blood Bowl, which is great to see. Really keen to see some of those come to Tournament of Champions. All right, we're up to shout-outs. Anything we want to say?
Blood Bowl's amazing. Keep playing. Roll hard. Play Slan if you can.
It's not bad. I'll sign off for that.
Yeah.
Wilts, anything else you want to say?
I don't know. Stay humble.
Yeah, love it. Stay humble.
Nice.
I suppose the only thing I've really got to say is a challenge to Ken to make sure that he actually heads back to Cairns to defend his trophy from this year. Fumble in the Jungle. Obviously very near and dear to my heart. But Ken, you've been up there once and you won it, mate. You'd better get up there to defend it.
Yeah, that's good.
Ooh,
I like that.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, you can suck it, Ken.
And with that, we got to jump onto our other Zoom.
We certainly do. We've got another big name, but you're going to have to wait for another episode for that one, ladies and gentlemen. Millsy out.
I'm kind of struggling to come up with anything at the moment. Just adding more editing for Millsy.
Just say Millsy was correct. I can edit that in really well. I wonder if I can change my voice to make it sound like you saying Millsy is the best.
Pull your head in, Millsy.
I like it. That's going to make it in. Are we
There
expecting
is
me
one
to say
other...
something about Sevens is awesome here now? Because it is.
And depending upon how long we chat, depends upon whether it's a whole episode by itself or whether we add extra bits to it.
Once a team's bought everything they need for the league, there's something for them to spend their money on every game. Prayers to Nuffle.
Yeah, and the listener can decide whether that's a good move for the game. That's perfect.
The league game
I think we've got to wrap it up. We've got to wrap it up, otherwise we'll just be talking for hours.
And see if
Yep.
Mushoomy is available for the next segment.
Oh,
There
just
we go.
in
See,
time, even.
Speak of the devil. Here he is. I still got to tie down Millsy to stitch them all together, and then we can have a guessing comp of whose That's Brilliant it is. Like out of all our guests.
Oh, that sounds.
I
that
should have been
sounds
Well,
saving
that
it
might
right
be a
from the
cool
start.
future segment. Yeah.
I reckon do that for Christmas.
Okay, I've got 6 months. I'll work on it.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Put on an expression session at lunchtime for years.
Down Underworld Denizens discusses games, workshops, games and products such as Blood Bowl, Gutter Bowl, Dungeon Bowl and Crunch. We also discuss other fantasy football board games and concepts from other companies such as Dread Ball, Guild Ball, Grind, Elf Ball, Myth and Goal, Blitz Bowl, Chaos Ball, Monsters of the Midway and Feud Ball. We discuss products and services such as miniatures or software made by producers suitable for several of these board games. Games Workshop terms and conditions in point 2.1 state they grant the user the non-exclusive right to use their authorised intellectual property for broadcasting and other media-related activities such as commentary and opinion pieces, blogs, and other similar informational and descriptive purposes. Down Underworld Denizens respects and honours these terms.